All right, let's begin. I welcome you all to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and declare the meeting open. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with Council's governance rules. It is important that members of the public present in the gallery respect the setting and do not disrupt the meeting, particularly during debate and discussion by councillors on items in the agenda. We will commence this meeting with a reflection. I would ask those gathered to join us now for a few moments of silence as we reflect on our roles in this chamber. Please use this opportunity for reflection, prayer or thought to focus on our shared intention to work respectfully together for the well-being of our whole community. Thank you, everyone. The Cardinia Shire Council acknowledges that we are on the traditional lands of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Apologies. We have Councillor Pomeroy is an apology for tonight's meeting. We also have Councillor Owen as an apology for tonight's meeting. And we have Councillor Nicol joining us online. So we can see him on screen there, and provided we can see him and hear him, he is able to join online. So thank you, Councillor Nicol. Can I please have a mover and a seconder confirmation of minutes? That Council confirm the minutes for the following meetings. 1, ordinary meeting on the 17th of March 2025 and 2, Town Planning Committee meeting on the 7th of April 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Roberts?
I move the adoption of and confirmation of the minutes.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Ross? Thank you. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. All right, declarations of interest. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest in relation to tonight's agenda? Councillor Potter, just your microphone, please.
I have a material conflict of interest in relation to a family member for, I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda item number with me. Can you help me, Peter? I'm sorry.
7.3.3, I believe.
Thank you. 7.3.3. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are there any other conflicts? Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, just item 7.2.2, the glass bin advocacy by reason of my employment.
7.2.2. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. We'll note that. Councillors, are there any other interest to declare? I see none. So we'll move on. We'll go to community questions. So we have received community questions from 3 different people. The first set of questions are from Tony O'Hara. Is Tony in attendance tonight? He is not. So a response will be provided to Tony. Our next set of questions are from Rosa Santo. Rosa submitted one question, which will be answered by the General Manager of Corporate Services, Wayne Mack. One part of this question has been ruled out of order as it talks to a councillor's personal information. And I'll go to you, Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And thanks, Rosa, for your question. During their council terms, there are official public holidays, plus Anzac Day, Remembrance Day, Easter break, and 5 weeks Christmas and New Year's break, which councillors are entitled to have. There seems to be quite a pattern here on councillors taking personal holidays outside official holidays after they've been elected into council. This needs to be assessed. If a councillor chooses to take a personal holiday outside of the given official council holidays, then their allowance should be adjusted to non-payment of allowance during their time off on a personal holiday, as this is ratepayers' public money being wasted on councillors' personal holidays, as these councillors are not serving the community during this time off, so the allowance should be adjusted accordingly. And the response is, councillors are able to work from multiple locations and can take personal leave. The Local Government Act 2020 does not provide for withholding councillor allowances. Thank you.
Thank you. The next set of questions are from Carol Ryan, and I'll go to you, Wayne Mack.
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Carol, for your questions. Question 1. As councils around Victoria have always acknowledged their past serving councillors with a send-off dinner, given a framed official stamped letter and gift for acknowledging their service and achievements and dedication to their community. Cardinia Shire has in the past given a send-off dinner to councillors and given an official stamped letter and gift. In 2024, as a serving councillor dedicating 8 years of my time and achievement service to Cardinia Shire community, and 2 other councillors each serving a 4-year term serving the community as well. Why have these three female past councillors, Carol Ryan, Kay Cameron and Stephanie Davies, not been officially recognised or acknowledged for their dedication of service, achievements and time given to their community by giving them a send-off dinner, an official framed stamped letter and gift in acknowledging their achievements? As other staff members, office staff are given this acknowledgement, why not these three councillors? Please explain. And the response? Former councillors received an end-of-term photo book and a personalised letter sent via email from the CEO following the election outcome. Question 2. Local councils are supposed to be non-political. During their time in council, councillors are meant to be impartial to political parties especially during state and federal elections during candidates campaigning, not assisting these candidates to win their election. With the last council citizenship ceremony, why has there only one candidate, a past councillor, Jeff Springfield, who is running the ALP Latrobe, seen having photos taken with residents receiving their citizenship certificates? Did council invite other candidates to the citizenship ceremony? If not, why not? And the response: council did not invite any candidates, only sitting members of parliament, which is the usual practice. Question 3. Why is council wasting ratepayers' money in covering a Q&A forum being held on Tuesday, 29 April at the Cardinia Cultural Centre and with live streaming it, when this is usually run by the Ratepayers Association? Is there a conflict of interest as the Mayor, Councillor Jack Kowalczyk, is a Labor member and may be seen as assisting the ALP candidate for Latrobe, who is a past councillor for Cardinia? Why is governance not stepping in on this issue? And the response: Cardinia Shire Council has organised next week's federal election community Q&A session to provide an important forum for all Latrobe candidates in the upcoming election. During the sessions, candidates will have an opportunity to hear more about Cardinia Shire's advocacy priorities and respond to questions posed by the community on issues that are important to them. An external moderator will facilitate the session to ensure fair speaking time for all candidates. All candidates standing for the seat of Latrobe in the upcoming federal election on 3 May have been invited to attend this non-partisan event. Advocacy is a key function of council. Investment from all levels of government is essential to support council in meeting the needs of the community now and as it continues to grow. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Sorry, Councillor Nicol, can I just please ask you to leave your camera on for the duration of the meeting? All right, let's get into ordinary business. Agenda item 7.1.1, Amendment C284 Card Pakenham Cemetery rezoning. The officer recommendation is that council write to the Minister for Planning and request 1. The Minister for Planning authorises council to prepare planning scheme Amendment C284 card to the Cardinia Planning Scheme pursuant to Section 8 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and for the Minister to act as the planning authority for the proposal. 2. The Minister for Planning exercises the ministerial powers of intervention pursuant to Section 20, Subsection 2 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and direct council to notify any potentially impacted owners and occupiers of land immediately adjacent to the east of the proposed rezoning of land included in the Amendment C284 card proposal, exempting herself and council from any other public notice requirements pursuant to the relevant provisions set out in Sections 17, 18 and 19 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. And 3, the Minister for Planning approves Amendment C284 card pursuant to Section 35 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Thompson.
I vote to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Potter. Councillor Thompson to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. As you read out the officer's recommendation, writing to the Minister for Planning and requesting these changes, I feel like this is something that hopefully is something that gets through with relative ease, as it's kind of something that happened is something that needs to happen in retrospect, as the land's already being used under the new zoning. There are burials happening within that part of the cemetery. So I feel like it's something that's kind of just not that anything in life's a fait accompli, but that this particular issue is something that is already happening and that this is more of just an administrative thing. So the background on it: in 2009, a road adjoining the Pakenham Cemetery was discontinued and transferred to the Pakenham Cemetery Trust. The discontinued road was reserved for cemetery purposes However, the zone of the land remained as urban growth zone rather than being rezoned to the proper zoning for a cemetery, which is public use zone. The land is currently used for cemetery purposes as stated. So without going into the full background, I think that's all that needs to be said for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mayor. To me, essentially, it's a case of admin catching up to reality. The amendment is required to be corrected at a zoning anomaly, where the zone does not match the current use. Fixing this error will ensure the ongoing effective operation of the Cardinia planning scheme by allowing the affected land to be used for cemetery purposes under the correct zone. And to me, it's common sense. My only concern is the locals that it might affect, and I trust that council staff will consult with them and inform them with clarity. It's important to me that Cardinia Council remains fully transparent and accountable to its ratepayers in all transactions and decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Roberts?
I just do want to note from a strategic perspective that the burials close to the edge of urban housing shows how much pressure our cemetery space is under, and that we need to start considering where future burials will occur and where that will be in the Shire. And I'm hoping that in our considerations going forward for the council plan that that might be a potential initiative that we can begin to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Payton?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you other councillors for your comments. Ordinarily, I would have concerns about any changes in whether they're just amendments or changes to legislation that don't avail themselves of the full public scrutiny that I think our public are deserving of. Because at council level, we need to be transparent, accountable, and community consultation should always be our default approach. However, in this particular case, I believe that the proposed rezoning will have only minor implications for the wider community. The intent is simply to correct a zoning anomaly that the land's use as a cemetery aligns with the zone map and strategic planning. On balance, I think the public impact is minimal and the likelihood of garnering meaningful community feedback on such a technical item is low. Therefore, I will support the recommendation before us, while reaffirming my general view that exemptions from public notification should remain the exception, not the rule. The community's right to be informed and to participate in planning decisions remains paramount, and we should continue to apply those principles rigorously in matters with broader or more substantive impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to the original mover, Councillor Thompson, to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, fellow councillors, for your input into this motion. I do want to just highlight on you, Councillor Payton, that I do 100% agree with you, and you touched on as well, Councillor Potter, that the transparency is fundamental and that community engagement is always at the forefront of any of our decision making. And I like how you put that something like this should be an exemption and not the normal. But since this was gazetted back in 2009 that this land was going to be rezoned and reused for these purposes and given to the cemetery, that, yeah, it's 100% admin catching up. But I do also note your point, Councillor Roberts, that we do need to start thinking of where to next. I do also want to note that this is dear to the hearts of the Cemetery Trust and friends of the cemetery, and a couple are in the gallery tonight, and this is very close to close to their hearts. So I just want to note them and thank them for their continued advocacy to make sure that something like this is rezoned appropriately. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. We'll now put the officer recommendation to item 7.1.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Item 7.1.2, Amendment C283 card, fix up amendment of minor anomalies and errors. The recommendation here is that Council write to the Minister for Planning and request 1. The Minister for Planning prepares Amendment C283 card to the Cardinia Planning Scheme pursuant to Section 8 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and acts as the planning authority for the proposal. 2. The Minister for Planning exercises the ministerial powers of intervention pursuant to Section 20, subsection 4 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987 to exempt Amendment C283 card from the public notice requirements under Section 17, 18 and 19 of the Act. And 3. The Minister for Planning approves Amendment C283 card pursuant to Section 35 of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Do I have a mover for this item, councillors? Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. I propose an alternate motion to this item.
Thank you. You present your alternate.
I propose that the Council resolves not to proceed with Amendment C283 card to the Cardinia Planning Scheme until such time as the results of the agricultural audit undertaken in 2024 are formally reported to Council and the community at a future Council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. We note that, and thank you, Governance, for having that on the screen there. Is there a seconder for this alternate? Councillor Ross. Councillor Payton to speak first.
So I've taken the time to carefully consider this item, including meeting with council officers and engaging local leaders in our agricultural sector. I've done so to better understand the intent and implications of these proposed amendments and to listen to the concerns of those who may be directly impacted by these changes. The alternate motion I'm putting forward today has been shaped by those conversations. It reflects both the concerns raised and the need for a more strategic and forward-looking approach. Strategy and vision must underpin everything we do. Even minor amendments to planning legislation should be rigorously tested against our broader strategic framework, not just to forecast opportunities, but to assess the risks of unintended consequence. Right now, too many of our planning resources are being absorbed by litigation and compliance enforcement linked to outdated or impractical policies. This is especially affecting our agricultural sector, which is already under pressure and deserves better support from Council. I acknowledge the comments from our officers about the importance of standardisation within Victoria's planning scheme. Consistency in land use terms does indeed make the system easier to navigate and increases confidence for both applicants and decision makers. I also acknowledge that Cardinia has land use terms within the special use zone and the comprehensive development zone that are as yet undefined or inconsistent, not only across our municipality but compared with the broader state framework. The detailed work of our officers have undertaken to formulate Amendment C283 card is exceptional and valued, but in my view, that work is best held in readiness, ready to be applied once we hear the feedback from the agricultural audit and know that a broader strategic review is scheduled. And this is the critical point. While these changes may appear policy neutral when judged against our current strategies, we have no assurance they will remain so once those strategies are updated. Even minor amendments can carry major implications when the policy context shifts. For that reason, I ask my fellow councillors to support this alternate motion. I'm asking for a month or two and for some more information, giving me time to further consult with the community. Let's take the time to align our planning instruments with a renewed and community-informed strategic vision, especially one that meets the need of our rural and agricultural stakeholders. Look forward to hearing the views of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Payton, for the alternate motion. In relation to this, anyone who's attended our planning meetings will realise our agricultural sector in that area often cops a brunt of inconsistency when it comes to planning applications. And it's been highlighted by Councillor Payton, Councillor Nicol and Councillor Pomeroy that this needs to be addressed. And if we don't take into consideration the agricultural audit, which is our local agricultural audit, in any amendments, I think we're missing the mark and missing the opportunity to take that into account, because it is local and we need to make sure it fits for purpose in Cardinia Shire. Anyway, I hope my fellow councillors support this amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers to this item? No, that's okay. I'll quickly jump in. Oh, I couldn't see him. Councillor Nicol, I didn't see you. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all right. And apologies, my camera is flicking on and off. I reckon I'm right on the limit. I've only got a couple of bars, so if I drop out, I'm trying to get back on. I would speak in favour of the ultimate motion as well, noting the careful words of Councillor Payton on this matter. I think that the work that's been conducted by the council officers is extensive and very thorough, and I commend them on that work. But in the context of the audit that's been conducted and is due to be presented to council soon, and I'd also add, in the absence of green wedge management plans for 2 of the 3 green wedges in Cardinia Shire, so no strategic plan or direction, I think there is further strategic work that might in fact mean that further amendments may be necessary, or these particular amendments being presented tonight may be wide of the mark, may not be where community wants to go with these green wedge areas. So in that context, I agree that this is great work. It will come in useful, but there is some other strategic work that needs to occur first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Are there any other councillors to speak to this item? Councillor Potter.
Okay, I'm happy to support Councillor Payton's motion. There seems to be no reason not to take a short pause for a month or so to properly consult and engage with the community about the details of this before we make a few changes. And it also doesn't mean we can't make changes in the future if we do make the changes. So I'm going to foreshadow the original motion in case the alternate doesn't get up.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. We note that you foreshadow the officer's recommendation in the event that this alternate does not get up. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Roberts.
In considering the alternative from Councillor Payton, my concern is that there's a lot of other material in this particular amendment that is not being realigned, that needs to be realigned, that has been out of date for some time. And I feel that pretty well a lot of it is information that it is neutral, and the officers would have made sure and would have double checked and have got that advice. If they're unsure, they've got that advice from the planning authority, and it's very much the case now that the plans are becoming, these clauses are becoming more standard across the state in the way that the framework is state framework is put together. So, in looking at this alternative motion, I'm unsure because I just am concerned about the rest of it's a big amendment and the rest of it that's being held back, and what issues that might be creating for the planners in their other work, in not having the scheme where it needs to be. So I'm hoping that in the case that this, if there is support for this around the table and that it goes forward, that the break is not long, because we'd be holding up the corrections that are needed, across other parts of this significant, and minor anomalies and errors fix up. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Yeah, I concur with you to a degree, and also with Councillor Potter. Councillor Payton, you said in your opening remarks that a fair amount of planning resource was taken up in litigation and things of that nature, and rules that need updating. And I think this update is trying to bring some of these things forward. But what you're asking for is essentially a deferral, which I generally lean to support when a councillor asks for a deferral. So I'm happy to support that on its merit. The only question I would put to you, maybe for in your summary, but to the council as well, is I don't necessarily see the link between this amendment and the agricultural audit explicitly. As Councillor Roberts identified, so much of this amendment is not related and will not be related to the agricultural audit. And I'm sure there'll be some parts that are. But I just question whether or not it is appropriate to delay an entire amendment and all the things listed in it when we were briefed on it not too long ago for the agricultural audit. I also don't see the link necessarily between some of the town planning challenges we've faced early in our term that local landowners have expressed to the likes of yourself and Councillor Pomeroy and Councillor Roberts, some of the rural councillors, in terms of those challenges, because I don't think those things can or will be addressed in this amendment in the future. Some of those things that the community is asking us to look at is actually counter to the whole state planning scheme, and we won't be able to address that. Some of the stuff that we've been tasked with in terms of protecting our valuable agricultural land and preventing excess buildings being built on it, I don't think we're going to be able to change that, and I don't think the agricultural audit will address that. But again, I'm happy to support this in light of it being a deferral. I anticipate, hopefully within 3 or 4 months, the agricultural, I don't know when the agricultural audit's coming back, but hopefully it's shorter than that, and this is not a significant delay. But yeah, okay. Thank you. That's it from me. Are there any other councillors? Councillor Thompson to speak, and then we'll go to Councillor Payton to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, I generally agree with, I think everything that's been thrown around the room so far, that on merit, I'm happy to support it. But I believe July-ish is when we're expecting the agricultural audit report. So then it obviously wouldn't be until the meeting after that we could actually move this through if we were still willing to do so. It is worth noting that this amendment, as per the discussion section, aims to correct zoning and overlay anomalies, typographical errors, and outdated land use terms in the Cardinia planning scheme. So I feel it is, as Councillor Roberts was saying, trying to just keep everything policy neutral, but just to redefine and centralise and standardise a lot of the language. And one of the things I do note in the officer's report is the term unnecessary disputes, to try and clean up a lot of that, whether it's been identified by officers in their day-to-day or by landowners or ratepayers in disputes they've had. So while we are delaying it, it's not without reservation that I'll support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to the original mover of the alternate, Councillor Payton, to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks everyone for your consideration and your comments. As I said, in what I led with was that I've really agonised over this quite a bit. I've had lots of discussions and thoughts, and I'm quite cognizant that the amount of work put in by the officers to create the amendment and any delay from this alternate motion will certainly impact some of their daily workings. However, I just can't reconcile allowing this through without giving time for some bigger authorities to look at it, to really assure that the amendments we're placing, especially in relation to broiler farms and piggeries, that redefining those or adding them in under a special use zone won't actually affect their operations or ability to replace sheds, get insurance, and all manner of what should be their rights as property owners to pursue. So I've put this in that the condition is the agricultural audit, because I also want to see that brought forward. That was completed in August last year and we still haven't seen the results of that, and I really don't have a reason as to why. So it's really a give and take situation here a little bit, and my understanding from what you've all said is that, yes, we don't want to unnecessarily pause this and drag it on for longer, we're aware that it's going to cause some pain in the meantime, or some, you know, a little bit waiting time for the planners. But in essence, I want to go ahead with the amendment as read. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. So we'll now put your alternate motion to agenda item 7.1.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Agenda item 7.2.1, appointment of community asset committees for recreation reserves. The recommendation is that Council 1 appoints the persons as listed in the agenda to the respective recreation reserve community asset committees appointed by Cardinia Shire Council in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. And 2, thanks community asset committee members for their valuable contribution to the management of community recreation reserves. Do I have a mover for this item, councillors? Councillor Thompson.
I vote to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roberts. Councillor Thompson to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. As per the summary, this report is seeking the formal acceptance of the memberships for the elected Community Asset Committee and formal council appointment of these members, and also thanking them for the massive contribution of their time and efforts to help the contribution to community livability and wellbeing through the management of over 15 recreation reserves throughout the community. This one here, the Pound Road facility, I believe is home to the Bunyip District Equestrian Club. So yeah, it's great to see another committee, another bunch of locals putting their hand up and dedicating time and effort to maintain and look after our facilities and to make sure that these spaces can be used to their full potential. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the recommendation as written, and note it's really important for community to have a say in their in the facilities that they use, and having the community asset committees actually allows this in a way that you lose when council takes over full control of a facility. And it's great that this committee of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are putting their hands up again for another term, or they may be returning or new members, and that they're one of 15 recreation reserves where we have active community asset committees now, who are supported by a member of staff in their work. So, and of course, Bunyip and having the equestrian facility not far from a race course. I guess you've got to get on a pony first before you get on a horse to become to race around the track at Pakenham. So it's all important about how we grow young people in whether they ride as a young person or as an adult, and supports that particular interest in our Shire. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to actually name the people who have put their hand up on the committee, because I think it's, they give a lot of time and effort for us. So let's at least acknowledge them here in the chamber. So we've got President Evan Joyce, Secretary Lauren Britton, Treasurer Tim Wilson, committee members Alison Gillies, Joe Interlandi, Russell Pendlebury and Frank Metz. Thank you to all of those people for all of this work that you do. Now, I had a quick look on the Cardinia's website, and it tells me that this reserve is perfect for local equestrians with 2 large sand arenas, as well as an extensive cross-country track. At the back of the reserve, there is this extensive cross-country track, which is a combination of bush and open areas on flat, easy-to-negotiate terrain, suitable for pony club grades 1 to 5. The reserve also has walking access for the public. So this is not just for equestrian use, but I think that the locals also enjoy walking the circuit and enjoying that native area that this reserve has to offer. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a very important, unique thing about Cardinia Shire. we're one of the few councils who still have community asset committees. Unfortunately, they seem to be going into extinction as people don't volunteer quite as much as they used to. But I must say, we still have got 15 committees. Other councils like Casey don't have these committees, and that comes at a high expense to the community, because when you've got volunteers who are highly passionate, local volunteers who know their reserve and use their reserve, and they volunteer their hours, it doesn't come any better value to that than ratepayers. And also too, you finish up with a really good result at the end of it, that they take ownership in, and the people have a say on a local level to these committees about what needs to be done. I think it should be celebrated. I know every year we celebrate on council with the volunteer celebration dinner, where we announce the Stan Henwood Award winner for the year, which highlights only one. There could be many, many every year get nominated to be the Stan Henwood winner. So this is another group that's put their hand up, and we celebrate that. I know that we're looking in the council plan to try and put something in about volunteers to try and encourage more people. So here's a group of people. Thank you very much for putting your hand up, and we look forward to seeing the outstanding results that you'll get from personally putting your time into the reserve on behalf of other ratepayers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers? I see Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mayor. I genuinely want to thank all these amazing community members who will be supporting the Pound Road Reserve in particular. I applaud them for stepping up in service as volunteers who really are the heart of our local community. I encourage everyone to look on our council website for other volunteering opportunities. It's a way to create meaningful connection in your life, and the community really needs you. Council provide a full-time liaison officer to support recreation community asset committees, including providing training for volunteers and assisting committees in compliance with risk requirements. And Council also conducts routine maintenance and provides these committees with maintenance funding, workshops to upskill volunteers, and access to leadership courses, and also an online portal as a place for committee members to access important resources, information and key dates. So yeah, I congratulate these people on this nomination, doing this important community work, and I encourage the rest of our residents and citizens to look for a volunteer opportunity for you. You won't regret it.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Thompson, to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all my fellow councillors who have spoken. Indeed, we are lucky to have so many volunteers, but we could also do with more. We can never have enough. So once again, thank you to Evan, Lauren, Tim, Alison, Joe, Russell and Frank for their dedication to the Pound Road Rec Reserve. And just to further highlight that if you are a current volunteer or you're looking to get into it, that we have plenty of opportunities and plenty of support to give out at council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So we'll put the officer recommendation to item 7.2.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you. Okay, we're going to take a pause here, and we're going to ask Councillor David Nicol to jump off regarding his conflict of interest, and we'll call you back in once this item has been done. Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Perfect. So we're happy to proceed. Very good. Okay, agenda item 7.2.2, the glass bin advocacy update. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes its commitment to drive value for money within our waste services for our community. 2, notes and celebrates the success of the container deposit scheme with high community participation within Cardinia Shire Council. 3, advocates for the delay in the implementation date of the Recycling Victoria's curbside reform glass-only service. 4, continues to work with the Victorian Government towards their goal of providing services that maximise resource recovery. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Ross.
I move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Thompson. Councillor Ross to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. Whilst the Victorian Government's initiative to implement curbside glass only bin service by the 1st of July 2027 aims to enhance recycling outcomes, the research and modelling conducted by Cardinia Shire Council and its partnering councils reveal significant financial and logistical challenges. The estimate costs for implementing the service are substantially higher than initially projected, with limited environmental benefits in comparison to the existing recycling processes. Furthermore, the lack of community consultation and potential negative impacts on amenity and logistics emphasise the need for a more considered approach. Therefore, it is recommended that Council continue to advocate and work with the Victorian Government to delay the implementation date of the glass service to allow for a thorough assessment so the best approach can be determined. And as a council, I know that we've discussed this in detail and we believe that it is something that will one day come in, but we believe it needs to be delayed while there is more consultation and more work done in this space. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross. Thoroughly agree with everything you said so far. I think, adding another bin into people's properties is already the little bit of community consultancy I've done with locals says that, that there's an appetite that the community is against this. I think at a council level, the discussions that we've had, the estimated costs that would impact Cardinia, and then effectively, obviously, the ratepayers financially, the costs have already blown out, I think, by almost about double or estimated to be about double as what was proposed from the state government. And the container deposit scheme, the CDS, is a raging success, especially within Cardinia Shire, where one of the leaders within the state in terms of how we're utilising that service. So I think with all of those things in mind, it makes sense to hit pause on this and to continue to advocate for other options around better waste management as opposed to what the state government's proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? I see Councillor Roberts.
Through you, Mayor. In my ward particularly, I have a growing number of small units and the ability to take a fourth bin, logistically, is going to be a challenge. And many of them are yet to take a third bin anyway because the green lidded bin for compost and green waste is food waste is not yet compulsory. So we've sort of actually we don't really know the impact yet because we haven't seen what's going to happen with the green bins. The item mentions that we're collaborating with 22 other local Victorian governments, and I believe that there's actually been even more jump on board since this item was prepared. I think it's possibly close to 29 now. So there's a bit of movement from councils who are seeing the success of the CDS, which we are, and I'm even experiencing that as a family. That it's a bit of a trip down to Bald Hill Road now with your box to get your $6, to give to some local charity is generally what we do, and my son loves going down and doing that. So there's a habits changing that are starting to form around bottles and potentially could be expanded to include the alcohol, the spirit bottles and the wine bottles quite easily, and that's the experience that's been borne out in Queensland. So hopefully we can work with those other councils and get in the ear of the state government for a better consideration of how this can work for us and then cost the ratepayer less in the longer term, because it's a lot of bins to buy. It's a lot of purple bins that we'd have to purchase, and then that cost has to be passed back to the ratepayer for the service. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. I think that the work that the council does to assist households and commercial and industrial sectors to dispose thoughtfully and considerately of their waste, both for the community and for the planet, is a vital and core service. I think, having sat through some briefings from our council officers who are probably the most informed waste management people I've ever heard from, and certainly very passionate about embracing new initiatives and ideas to make waste disposal more considered, more thoughtful, more practical, with better results, is important for us to listen to. And at this point, what I'm hearing and what I'm reading is that our council officers are not comfortable with the proposal that the state government have offered. Key components in this report from me is that we want to let the Victorian government know that we are not satisfied that their scheme is affordable. We are not satisfied that their scheme is practical, either for additional bins to be placed on the curbside or for the service to be used as intended. And we are not satisfied that their scheme is safe. Personally, I envisage youth crime sprees tipping these glass bins into gutters, roads and drains. We've had issues where I live in a more rural area where we've had youth crime sprees on a weekend, and they've, just tipped the waste bins or the recycle bins and caused all sorts of issues for local wildlife, for children trying to cross the road, and for the locals just managing the rubbish. And I think that there's a lot more thought that needs to go into this recommendation, this initiative from state government before we adopt it. So that's my position. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, everybody supports recycling, whether it be our plastics, whether it be our food waste, our green waste and glass. I know that road base has now got a lot of glass in it, but we're talking about millions and more tonnes here that will come in. There needs to be an industry backing it up rather than places like Visy that have a mountain of glass sitting at the front, which they can't use at the moment. I must say the logistical side of it is a real bit of a nightmare. I know when I've been going around the Shire in the past, putting pamphlets in letterboxes and that, one particular unit site where it was designed to have 12 bins originally, and it had 24 bins. It has 36 bins. There's only 12 spaces. So the house next door has 24 bins in front of it every day. Every time that it gets picked up, 24 bins. And a lot of people don't go and pull them in. And I know that those people who live there actually shared with me that the husband's an asthmatic and the whole lot of it. And the amount of odour that comes from the bins is horrible. So we're talking about increasing it to 36 bins. These are the sort of things that need to be taken into consideration if you live in an urban area that wasn't designed for these sort of retrofit solutions. We need them to think about it a little bit more and do the work on this. Council doesn't have the work. This is a state government initiative. And we need them to do more work in this space to work out how we can do it so that the residents are looked after at the same time. They want to do it, except it's very costly. And as it was pointed out in the reports that we've been given, and a lot of councillors are supporting this, the numbers we were given initially are only half of what the potential cost could be, plus the inconvenience that I've explained for a lot of residents, particularly with smaller blocks now and more units going up. I mean, I don't know who sets aside 48 places for bins inside a 12-unit site, but that's what you'll have to have. You'll have 48 bins. Anyway, I think this is a good compromise that we've got. We're not saying no, but we're saying it needs to be delayed while there's more work being done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. So we'll now put the officer recommendation to item 7.2.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. All right. Peter, can you please bring Councillor Nicol back in before we move on to the next item? Thank you, Councillor Nicol. We see you. Welcome back from the last item. So we'll go to agenda item 7.2.3, Visitor Economy Partnership. Long recommendation here. I might shorten this. The officer recommendation is as noted in the report. I might see if I can just come up with a shorter one. So councillors will note the recommendation points 1 through to 6. I'll read out the first one and not 2 through to 6. The one that council endorses the establishment of the new visitor economy partnership for the region, noting the endorsement from Yarra Ranges Council on 8 April 2025 and contingent upon endorsement from Nillumbik Shire Council on 29 April 2025. Is that sufficient, Peter, in terms of introducing the item? Yeah. I think we're happy with that. All right, councillors, do I have a mover for this item? I see Councillor Ross.
I move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Is there a seconder? Councillor Thompson. Councillor Ross to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. The council endorses 1, the establishment of the new visitor economic partnership for the region, noting that the endorsement from Yarra Ranges Council on the 8th of April 2025 and contingent upon endorsement from Nillumbik Shire Council on the 29th of April 2025. 2, supports the allocation of $72,500 per year, adjusted annually for CPI increases, along with the contribution of a 0.6 FTE of Cardinia Shire Council staff time to the Visitor Economic Partnership for a 3-year term of agreement commencing on the 1st of July 2025. The staff contribution is contingent upon the acceptance and at the discretion of the newly formed Tourism East Board. 3, delegations responsibility for the implementation of the new regional visitor economic partnership, Tourism East, to the CEO following the legal incorporation. The Chief Executive Officer and other authorised proxy will also remain on the Board of Tourism East to ensure the interests of Cardinia Shire are represented and to continue guiding the strategic direction of the partnership. 4, notes that the Yarra Ranges and Dandenong Ranges Destination Management Plan is a key strategic document for the Visitor Economic Partnership to be implemented. Upon appointment to the new Tourism Board, the plan will be reviewed and updated accurately to reflect and represent the new region, inclusive of Cardinia Shire. 5, that notes that pending approval and adoption of the amended constitution by the Yarra Ranges Tourism, Cardinia Shire Council is required to maintain an industrial representative on the Tour East Board, with this person to be initially appointed by Cardinia Shire's Tourism Advisory Committee. And 6, acknowledges the amount of time and effort that council officers have dedicated to securing the opportunity for Cardinia Shire's local tourism industry. This is a new foundational group which has been formed, which we will see how it all goes, but we join with some other councils who have very similar sort of tourism outcomes that they're looking for. And we hope that we can have an injection in there on our strategic plan in this area and involve our tourism sector in being involved in it too. We've dedicated some money and some time to give this a fair income go. So we'll see what the outcomes are in future and we get reported back to us to see whether it's worthwhile. It is something that you sort of had to be part of or you might miss out. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think the Visitor Economy Partnership that's being proposed that we join with Nillumbik and Yarra Ranges is a really exciting opportunity to be a part of. I think as far as a region, we fit really well into that kind of tourism space. The VEP and what we will now be renamed, it currently is Yarra Ranges Tourism, I believe. It will be renamed to Tourism East. It's poised to significantly enhance and expand the region's visitor economy, unlocking numerous opportunities for council members, local industry and community growth, which are all obviously very positive things that we want to be striving for. So yes, there is initial outlay of funds and an economic commitment and ongoing commitment as far as like a membership fee and staffing. But as far as the opportunity that unlocks for our region and our shire to bring in international, interstate and intrastate people is something that we should be really, really excited about. And what it also does is, because you need a minimum of 3 people to be a part of these new VEPs, it allows locals and local businesses to have access to exclusive access to funding that isn't otherwise available if you aren't a part of one of these VEPs. So financial support can come in the way. Where are we here? Can't find the exact funding, sorry, Mayor, at this stage, but there are multiple exclusive opportunities in which local businesses can access by being part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Nicol?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I strongly support this officer's recommendation. It's fantastic news for Cardinia Shire to be joining into this bigger, broader initiative in this sector. We host one of the state's biggest tourist attractions in Cardinia, in Puffing Billy, and we also have some large newer entrants into the tourism market when you think about Gumbaya World. But we have a large number of very small businesses and small tourism businesses scattered across the whole Shire. This very, very modest investment by us in joining this group, which I must commend our officers in obtaining some concessions from the other member councils because we are new entrants into this. This small investment, comparatively small investment, has the potential to yield huge results for employment, for small business, and for economic activity in the Shire. And very, very importantly, we have a seat at the table around this. So it's also very easy for too much tourism to destroy the feel and the vibe of local communities and actually ruin amenity for locals. And so there is a bit of a tightrope to be walked in seeking to unlock the tourism potential for our Shire. I just think of the Bunyip State Park, for example, one of the most highly biodiverse pieces of bushland along the whole Australian eastern seaboard, and it's untapped in terms of visitor potential and economic potential. It's like when we stopped logging the Bunyip State Forest, we turned our back on it as an economic opportunity. It's a huge economic opportunity, and being a part of this group means that we can start seeing the sorts of investment that's flowed into the Shire of Yarra Ranges over the last 2 decades start to flow towards us. This is a really important and significant moment, and I'm very, very pleased that we've managed to get a seat at the table.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Yeah, I just want to jump in here. I'm so excited that we're finally here. I think since getting onto council, I have been spoken to by a number of tourism operators and engaged with so many locals in our outer townships who have been frustrated by the lack of opportunity that being a member of Cardinia Shire previously provided. So by Cardinia Shire not being a part of tourism boards, our local tourism operators weren't able to access funding and grant opportunities that their neighbours in Yarra Ranges were able to, their neighbours in Bass Coast, their neighbours in Morn Pen, etc. And one of the key reasons that we couldn't join was because we're this really unique zone. Well, of course, we have our beautiful hills regions, but we also have our southern regions and our railway towns. And so by joining Gippsland, we'd lock out the hills. And by joining the hills, we'd lock out Gippsland. And there was never a solution that worked for Cardinia Shire until now. So I note point 6, I think, thanks officers. I think we should shout out Dana Harding, who's led this work from council and has the potential to be a game changer for our Shire and the tourism operators within it, because we love Puffing Billy and we love Gumbaya World, but that is not the extent of our tourism industry in Cardinia Shire. So a very, very positive step. I know people have been asking me about this for a very long time, so I'm glad that we're finally here. I hope councillors adopt this and recognise the potential and the opportunity that this provides us. Yeah, good job, Dana. Thank you. Councillor Payton.
Thank you. I'm very excited by this initiative, and also thank Dana for her work in this area, plus all of the members of her team. She doesn't work alone. But when I look at decisions like this, apart from celebrating all of the really great positives, I look and think at the other side of the coin and think, well, if we didn't accept this now, what are we going to miss? And what I do know is, as Councillor Thompson raised, you need to have 3 separate local government areas to join this partnership in order to get it approved. And at the moment, we are very lucky, very fortunate that the Yarra Ranges Shire Council and Nillumbik are willing to partner with us. Now, if we said no to them, they might need to go and join with another council that's north-south, north-east-west of them. But for now, we've got this. And if we don't join with them, who then would be our opportunity to join with? So I think that, you've got to look at what opportunities do you lose if you don't. I do want to register the comment by Councillor Nicol about, we do walk a bit of a tightrope. We've got some very big business operators, especially in Western Port Ward. And I know that if the tourist trade sort of started knocking on their door regularly and contaminating their farmland, then, that would be a real risk to their productivity and to their livelihoods. So we need to ensure that whatever tourism comes and whatever initiatives and change this new partnership gives rise to, is that it protects what we already have and enhances it and opens us up for further economic and, just tourism opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to Councillor Colin Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for sharing different angles on this issue. I must say, to fathom just what an opportunity this is. If you have a look through the report, you'll see that the Yarra Ranges Council are contributing $300,000 in one full-time working position to this group. We've contributed $72,500 and 0.6 of a worker, and Nillumbik have put 72,000 like us, but 0.2 of a worker in equivalent. So it is a really big group, and the benefits of clusters, I know in the past that I've shared, people have no understanding of just how big these clusters can be and how powerful they are. When you have a look at it, if you combine Casey, Cardinia and Dandenong, you've got as big a population as Canberra, very soon as big as Adelaide, and the population of Tasmania. So when you go talking to different groups about putting some money towards things, you're talking about a really, really big cluster. And we've got so many areas. I just think we're amazingly diverse in Cardinia Shire, as it was pointed out by Councillor Nicol. The opportunities for riding holidays for people through the trails in the hills. We've got Puffing Billy. We've got so many wineries, cellar doors, restaurants. We've got agricultural areas, that promote dairy for city kids. There's so much opportunity out here, which is just untapped. And the amazing thing about Cardinia Shire, it's within a day you can go and do all these things. And so many people go on buses all the way down to Phillip Island, and they go through Cardinia Shire on the way there. So there's opportunities that people go past. We just have to make sure that they want to stop in Cardinia Shire on the way through. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. So we'll now put the officer recommendation to item 7.2.3 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Agenda item 7.2.4, Register of Confidential Council Decisions 2020 to 2024. The recommendation is that Council notes the register of confidential items considered in closed council meetings from October 2020 to December 2024 in attachment 1, and 2, approves the recording of these items as an accurate record. Is there a mover for this item? Councillor Thompson?
I vote to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. A seconder for this item? I see Councillor Potter. Councillor Thompson to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is effectively, for what I can gather, just another administrative kind of report that council is just making sure that it's on top of its governance, to making sure that it is fully transparent in all of its public records. So the standing practice on how council negotiated confidential items to what the new Local Government Act of 2020 states means there has to be a change in how those are documented. So this report allows the public record to be updated so that the published record of council meetings is accurate. But what I think is really, really important about these confidential items, and there's a whole host of reasons that the new Act from 2020, there's A through to K, reasons why something may be confidential within a public meeting. I think it's really important to note, I think to councillors and to the public, that this does not impact the validity of decisions that have been made or result in the community not having access to information it would have otherwise had access to. Like I said, I feel like it's just more of a governance thing to make sure that we are reporting things accurately and correctly, and still remaining transparent as possible when negotiating delicate and sensitive items. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Casey. I would like to second this, and basically, as part of the course, occasionally there are certain items put before council that need to be confidential and are discussed in closed meetings. It's very clearly set out what those cases are on page 361 and 362 of the report. I don't need to go into them, but as Casey said, Councillor said, that it doesn't decrease the validity of the decisions at all, and it's just an important part of this whole process. So the Local Government Act changed the way that confidential items needed to be considered, and it included ensuring that the items are listed in the open agenda and meeting minutes with the reasons that they were considered as close to public. And this report does that and asks us just to note the register of confidential items considered in the closed council meetings from October 2020 to 24, and asks us to approve the recording of the items as an accurate record. So I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are there any other speakers to this one? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Thompson to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Potter. Not much more to add. I'd just like to say there is an attachment in the agenda which does itemise all matters of which were deemed confidential and the reasons why in this report. And also note that as of November 2024, since this new council was elected and has been sitting, that we have been using the updated guidelines and procedures when dealing with confidential items. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll put the officer recommendation to 7.2.4 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 7.3.1, Community Vision 2040 and Deliberative Panel Outcomes Report. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes and receives the summary of the Community Panel deliberative engagement process and the outcomes of the panel, including their A, review and update of the Community Vision 2040, B, priorities to inform the development of the draft strategic objectives for the Council Plan 2025 to 2029 and the long-term financial, asset and livability plans, and 2, adopts the reviewed Community Vision 2040 in accordance with Section 88, subsection 5 of the Local Government Act 2020 to come into effect from 1 July 2025. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Potter?
Thank you, Mayor. Shall I start reading? Yep.
Like to move the officer's
I
recommendation.
would like to move the officer's recommendation as noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Ross. Councillor Potter, over to you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Basically, I want to thank the members of our community who volunteered to be part of this amazing process. Your insights, thoughts and wisdom and ideas were also instrumental. Thank you. Those who spoke up and represented the communities and you were part of creating Cardinia's future. So thank you so much for your time, insight, wisdom and care. Overall, this process is so important because it ensures the voices of everyday residents are heard and valued in shaping our future of our community together. It's a fascinating, inspiration and exciting process to see it grow and develop and to actually be part of it all. We are here now, let's make the most of it, kind of a spirit. So I really appreciated it. Having a diverse community panel helps bring a range of lived experiences, local knowledge and priorities into the mix, leading to more transparent, inclusive and well-informed decisions, and it builds trust in our community, enhances accountability and ensures council's resource strategies reflect what truly matters to our local residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Potter, for withdrawing this item. This is actually one of the highlights on a dry sense of the Local Government Act 2020, which has groups have to have community panels involved in their council plan. Some councils used to do it, we did, but it's really, really important that the community can come on the journey with council to really share with us what their thoughts are in this space. I very much look forward to reading more about it and seeing what it's about. I know Councillor Nicol was on the last councillor panel and he shared with us internally how he saw the vision forming and how they were treated on the panel and how well considered they were and how well it was done. So hopefully everyone's had a really good experience and they'll be encouraged to come back on it in future. I know that we did have a portion of people from the past come back on for some consistency. So therefore it wasn't all brand new people, but it was they tried to make up the panel reflective of the dynamics of the community in relation to the different genders, the different backgrounds, the different age groups, so that everybody could be represented in proportion of what would be within inside Cardinia Shire. Except I don't think we had many children on it, but hopefully their parents will speak on their behalf. Anyway, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, and thank you, Councillor Potter, for speaking so passionately about this item. I want to thank Emma in the crowd, a member of our community panel. So there was 4 sessions. I think I attended all of them or most of them. I know Councillor Payton attended a couple of them as well. But it was really interesting because councillors weren't allowed to be involved in the process, so we were here as observers only, and it was amazing to watch a group of our community work through the questions that we face every day in terms of briefing and, looking after assets, our billions of dollars worth of assets, and hard financial questions and prioritisation and council services and what standards should we deliver. It was amazing, and I was amazed at how informed and how considerate the panel members were and the answers that they came up with, and ultimately the community vision they presented to me as mayor. So certainly a very, very proud moment for me, and I look forward to, as we go through the council plan process, to ensure we encapsulate their thoughts and their vision into the work that we do over the next 4 years. So very exciting. And I know we've put out thank yous online, but I think it's nice in a formal council meeting setting to thank everyone who participated in that panel for what they did. All right. Are there any other speakers? I'll go to Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, I think one of the minor things that hasn't been said is that being a member on a community panel like this is definitely a two-way process. You get to give council your vision of the future and your opinions as to what needs to be changed and what's working well. But one of the things that I found quite remarkable is that if I did have spoken to anybody that was on the panel since, and Emma's one of those people, they all say that they learned such a lot about council. They had no idea about, whether our waste management was so detailed in all of the considerations that had to be made in that regard, or they had no idea about how many different businesses council actually is running at the same time. People think council and they think, oh, they charge us rates and we, they fix or don't fix our roads and they collect our rubbish and that's all they do. And being part of a panel like this, did inform them just the degree of detail, how very expert each of our officers and managers are in their field, and exactly how broad sweeping the impact of decisions made at council can be. So thank you, and I would hope that in future we have more community members that are just as willing as this current panel were to join us. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Are there any other speakers to this item? I see none. I'll go to Councillor Nicol. I see you. Yep. Just in time.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got to learn to anticipate the lag. Yes, I would speak again strongly in favour of this recommendation, and it's great to see the vision as it has come forward. I was, as Councillor Ross mentioned, I was on the first panel that ran with the vision 4 years ago, and really encouraging to see that this process has evolved. The last process, it wasn't just a clone. It wasn't just a clone. People obviously weren't just going through the motions, but this new group brought their collective minds, experience, and wisdom to the table again in this process, and it's been captured very well. Reading through the vision, there are elements which just feel right. As a member, as a resident of Cardinia myself, I find myself nodding my head, going, "Yeah, that sits right. It feels right." And I would just like to flag for the public record how strongly this vision is already influencing the council planning process. So already, as we, as a group of councillors, are considering the council plan and the business plan, this vision is already shaping our thinking and guiding the principles that we're trying to achieve in the council planning process. In fact, there'll be an item coming up a bit later tonight on the agenda. I think I might quote directly the third last stanza of the community vision, because it hits the mark. Again, a great effort. It's very difficult on these high-level engagement pieces, such as a deliberative panel. That's one of the highest sort of levels of community engagement you can do. Normally, the process should run a lot longer, and it probably could run a lot longer, and the panel members would get even more out of it and have that ability to steer the vision process even more strongly. But in the compressed time that was made available, I'm very pleased with the job they've done. It's a great piece of work, and it'll stand us in good stead if we keep turning our minds to it as a council whenever we're in doubt about which way to head. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. I'll go to Councillor Potter to sum this item up.
I'm very happy to move the officer's motion as noted. This is, to me, one of the most important parts of the puzzle, and it will guide us as council as we create the council plan and make decisions. This panel represented different demographics of Cardinia, as Mayor said, as a cross-section of our community, and met for 4 sessions in February, guided by an external independent practitioner called InSync. This process included reviewing and updating the Community Vision 2040, the development of the council plan, financial plan, asset plan, and livability plan will all be influenced by this. The next phase of this is the wider community participation in the review of council strategic plans from 27th of March to 11th of May. And it is underway and invites feedback from the broader community on draft strategic objectives to inform the next council plan and associated strategic plans. It was great that the community vision and the outcomes of the community panel were presented to all us councillors in March, and we listened and we were truly affected by the feedback. I'm pleased to say I genuinely feel we are all on similar trajectories overall. These outcomes included the community panel's priorities, which have in turn informed the draft council plan strategic objectives, which are open for feedback on the broader community, as I stated. And the fascinating details are all there for everyone to see. What an amazing process. I'm so grateful that we do it this way, and I really valued what the report had to say. I encourage the public to please look at creating Cardinia online to contribute to the discussion as we grow and learn together toward a fantastic future for Cardinia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. So we'll put the officer's recommendation to item 7.3.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Item 7.3.2, Draft Community Engagement Policy 2025 to 29. The recommendation is that Council 1 notes the outcome of the review of the Community Engagement Policy 2021 to 24, and 2 approves the Community Engagement Policy 25 to 29. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Roberts.
Through you, Mayor. The Draft Community Engagement Policy 2025 to 2029 has been...
Councillor Roberts, would you like to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes, I would like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Do I have a seconder for this item? Councillor Ross. Councillor Roberts.
The Draft Community Engagement Policy 2025 to 2029 work began on reviewing this policy close to a year ago in the April-May of 2024. So the community are probably quite keen to see this one through the process, and I'm very grateful that officers held it back so that it gave this new council an opportunity to have a look at it and give some final feedback, which is included in the report. I've worked in the field of community engagement and over a long period in local government, and starting right back in the 90s, before the spectrum that's used now was even used in Australia. And this field has matured, and local government has got a lot better at listening to the community and involving them, or engaging with them, or even empowering them, as is the case that we've just seen with the previous item, where we've been talking about the community vision process. When I came to Cardinia and was working for the organisation in the around 2008, 2009, the thought of empowering the community to contribute we weren't there at that stage, and it's now quite amazing to see that we are, and we give that much and we give that voice to the community, and we listen to that extent. But it's something that you have to continue to commit to, and that's what we're doing in reviewing and adopting this policy tonight. And one thing I do need to note is that the IAP2 spectrum itself is under review at the moment, and officers have assured us that that those changes can be taken in as an administrative review, even if we adopt this policy tonight. The organisation itself is looking at changing its name to be as well. So we won't be calling it IAP2, it could potentially called the Engagement Institute. So it's a continuing, evolving space. For this particular engagement process, the staff took the policy out to a number of groups, which were noted in the item. They included the Multicultural Advisory Group, the Cardinia Interfaith Group. They also spoke to members of the initial 2021-22 community panel and the Access Inclusion Advisory Group. They also visited a number of sites around the Shire to engage with the community, and a number of events as well as part of their engagement. Engagement is never the same process. You may have the same document that you're going to review, but each time you have to look at it for the circumstances of that time in time and space, and for that particular community. So this policy really sets the groundwork for officers to go every single time, go to this policy, how are we going to do it for the level of engagement and that we want to have with the community to ensure their voice is heard. So that's why I strongly support this recommendation being adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Roberts, for withdrawing this item. During April-May 2024, the Community and Council staff shared feedback to inform the review of the Community Engagement Policy 2021-2025 and its implementation. The report provides a summary of the feedback and amendments made to the policy. Operational guidelines have been developed to support staff to implement the principles as obtained in the policy. Council must adopt and maintain a community engagement policy under the Local Government Act 2020. The existing Community Engagement Policy 21-25 was adopted in February 2021. The review in 2024 provided the opportunity to streamline the policy and improve community engagement practices, include updated legislation requirements, example, gender impact assessment considerations. We were visited by the Commissioner for Gender Equality on council, and just to know a few things that you would think that are really simple, that if you don't take them into consideration when you're looking at community engagement, is something like she shared with us that people don't realise that crash dummies for cars don't involve women. They're all done by men. So they don't take in consideration how an impact on a car impacts women in an accident. So therefore you finish up with more women being injured than men in cars because they haven't been tested. This just goes to show that things that you would normally think are taken into consideration or doing assessments aren't done automatically. They need to be put into the engagement policy, and that's why the legislation requirements require gender impact statements, assessment considerations. Also, we receive community feedback to assist with continuous improvement in the engagement approaches. This is really, really important. If we stop listening, as we heard in our panel earlier, to the community, you might as well just be an organisation that just doesn't connect. You just put commissioners in, and as people have seen in Casey over the last term with no councillors at all, you talk to the community, they ring the 1-800 number and they get got back to by some officers, but they actually don't have that personal touch, being able to talk to someone who can go within and speak on their behalf. Anyway, this is really important. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other speakers to this item? I'll just briefly add a real positive about this policy, I think, is that it does speak to young people as an underrepresented group in terms of community engagement. And I think, you know, in terms of engagement with council or any level of government, really would have to be young people, would have to be children. And I go to a lot of schools as mayor and do a lot of school presentations about democracy and the 3 levels of government. And one of the things I always impart on kids is that even though they don't have the power to vote, we are elected to represent children just as equally as we are elected to represent adults. And I think that is important, and I think that that's something we should always have front of mind. And so, you know, I hope in the future that we're able to stand up a youth advisory committee to speak on behalf or as a representative for the kids of Cardinia Shire. But I'm also pleased that this policy talks to, you know, kids as a special group, children as a separate group of people who we need to make sure we're engaging with as much as possible. And I know it is difficult. It certainly is difficult engaging with kids, particularly if you're talking about something boring like policies and things of that nature. You have to pick your battles. But I think we're moving in the right direction with this community engagement policy. I like that it's picked out those different groups who we know are traditionally underrepresented, and it's got plans in how to engage with them. So, yeah, I'm happy to support this. I hope my fellow councillors do too. Thank you. All right, I'll go back to you, Councillor Roberts, to sum up this item.
Thank you, Mayor. In summary, I'd like to also acknowledge the engagement team who work on and will continue to work on rolling this policy out across the organisation. So there's a level of of transparency across the organisation about how the policy is implemented. Thank them for their work, and I recommend this this item to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll put the officer recommendation to item 7.3.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. All right, agenda item 7.3.3. We're going to pause here for Councillor Potter to exit before we start this one for conflict of interest. Thank you, Councillor Potter. All right, thank you. We'll note that Councillor Potter has left the room due to a conflict of interest and will be called back in after this item. So the officer recommendation here is that Council 1 revokes the rates and charges financial hardship policy adopted 21 November 2022, and 2 adopts the draft rates recovery and financial hardship policy. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Thompson?
I vote to move the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. This document is another example of council and officers showing good governance in their procedures. Highlighting what Councillor Payton was saying earlier, there is just so much that council does across all facets of our community, a lot that obviously we as locals and ratepayers do see, but so much behind the scenes that we don't see, and so much is mandated outside of our control or our say by policy and procedure. So this is just another example of making sure that we're on top of good governance and showing good practice. It's certainly not that we're not compliant or anything like that. As the document states, it's just to update to make sure we're up to date with relevant legislation. And I like the term that it's a much more customer-centric approach. I would like to highlight that as of the end of March 2025, there were 1,330 assessments that are currently on payment plans and 139 assessments that are on financial hardship agreements. Across the state, the average of unpaid rates is 10.4%, but here in Cardinia, as of 2024, we're at 15.9. So it just shows that financial hardship and locals doing it tough is very, very real within our Shire. And this document is certainly not out to get anyone. It's certainly not, we're not making things more rigid or more strict so we can all of a sudden start hunting some extra dollars or anything like that. It's just good governance. It's standard across a lot of councils, a lot of the figures and facts that are in this document. For example, one thing that was scary when we were getting briefed about this item was the low threshold before amount. So the low threshold of unpaid rates before a block of land or housing could be sold. But we were told that our thresholds are actually a little bit higher than a lot of councils, which is make of it what you will compared to other councils, but that within any officers, I think their time within council, it hasn't happened or needed to be, because end of the day, Cardinia Shire residents and officers within council are trying to work with each other and trying to achieve a common goal, and no one's out to get anyone. So a pretty standard document, just making sure that we're up to date with good practice and good governance, and just would like to reassure locals that this is certainly not a money grab or a document that is, nasty in any nature. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Thompson, for withdrawing this item. If people read the report, you'll see across Victoria unpaid rates reaching the state average of 10.4%, with a surge in arrears of 32% since 2023. Cardinia Shire, we have had an increase of 13.8 in 2023 to 15.9 in 2024, which just shows how hard people are doing it in the community. I must say, cutting through all of the policy and getting right to the bottom line, we do have a policy here which, if you come in and see us, we always tell people if you're doing it really hard, come and see us before it's due and we can work something out. We can work out a plan or something to make sure you get through. So we minimise the damage and stress upon you, that you don't sit there thinking it's just sitting there, I don't want to go, I don't want to approach it, I don't want to do anything while things are getting worse. Come in initially when you get it, if you're going to struggle to pay it, and talk with us. We'll work something out with you. Anyway, I think this is a really good initiative and a good policy to have, because it just demonstrates to the community that we do care. We realise that people are going to do it hard from time to time, and we are here to assist, not penalise people. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Yeah, well said. I'm really proud of the work that Council is doing in this space, in what we've done since my time on Council in improving the policy around this, trying to, I guess, protect local people. So as you mentioned, and I thought you said it well, I encourage people, if you genuinely cannot afford to pay your rates, please engage with Council, ask for some help, and our team will be able to provide that in accordance with this policy and some good judgment. I think Cardinia Shire Council is better than other councils in this space, and I'm sure there's always more work to be done. But yeah, our people are compassionate, and they will certainly work with, and they do work with, lots of our residents who can't pay their rates, whether that's in the short term or also in the very, very long term. In terms of the threshold schedule, as you mentioned, Councillor Thompson, talking with senior staff, no one in living memory can recall this council ever using the schedule to sell property from residents to reclaim unpaid rates. So I asked in the briefing, why then is it important to have it and for figures to be so low? And it was explained to me that it's particularly for people who don't think they need to pay rates in one instance, and this step would never be exercised, for someone who is communicating with council about their situation and working towards a payment plan. But I think it's interesting that councils need to have that in there, and councils across the state do have it in there, because there is some people who think that rates don't apply to them anyway. But yeah, overall a very, very good policy. But yeah, I think you summed it up well in terms of Cardinia Shire being above average for people being in rates arrears and being in financial hardship. We know that we're in the middle of the mortgage belt. We know that we're a growth area. We know that we're home to a lot of young families, a lot of first home buyers as well. So we as the council need to do everything we can to ensure we're supporting our residents. I think this is just one small part of that. Thank you. Councillor Payton.
Thanks everyone for your comments on this matter. I'm going to speak against this motion. I came into this role to sit on council to be the voice of the unheard people of the council, of the Shire. And we all hear daily of the rising cost of living. I prefer to think of it as a rising cost of government. This rates recovery and hardship policy might sound helpful, and in our current administrative position, it's a necessary tool to assist those who struggle to pay their spiralling rates bills each year. But it's really covering up a deeper issue. Rates are too high and the system isn't fair. People who own a property are being forced to pay for services that they don't want or they don't use. This policy provides a tool for council to set up a payments plan for people struggling to pay their rates, so that can be helpful, but it also provides a tool for council to take legal action against them. Even if you don't own a property, if you're renting, your landlord shifts the increase in the rates bill onto your increase in rental payments. Paying rates is not a choice, it's mandatory if you own a property. Council refers to ratepayers as customers. Our reception team takes customer calls, and we talked about this policy being more customer-centric. In most transactions involving a customer, if the customer is not happy with the service provided, they have a choice about not paying for the service or asking for a refund. Not so in this case. That is, the rates and hardship policy that I would support would be a policy that sees Cardinia cutting costs, doing less, and letting ratepayers keep more of their own money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you for everyone's input. And I just wanted to note that when I read the old policy and the new policy, I really felt the revised policy is an easier read. And this is becoming more and more important as we have more people in our Shire for which English is not their first language. And these documents need to be clear so that they can not misinterpret them. And we also have a service for which they can get translation support if need be when working with officers. So that was one of the good things that I really saw out of this policy being reviewed. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any other speakers to this one? I see none, so I'll go back to Councillor Thompson to sum us up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all my fellow councillors for their input. To sum up, I'll keep it fairly brief. I think, as you mentioned, Councillor Roberts, the layout of the new policy is, it does make it easier to get your head around these things. Echoing the thoughts of Councillor Ross and Councillor Kowaczyk. Section 4 it has the payment plans and the financial hardship. So it actually outlines the process of the different options if you are struggling, if you are running out of options. There are alternatives. It's not just all doom and gloom. So I can't say I agree with you, unfortunately, on this one on Councillor Payton, because we can't have no policy at all. And this current motion seeks to revoke the old one and adopt a new one. So I will still be very firmly in favour of this current motion. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now put the officer recommendation to 7.3.3 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. All right, pause. We'll welcome back in Councillor Potter. Thank you, Peter, and we welcome back Councillor Potter, and we'll note that in the minutes. So we'll go on to agenda item 7.4.1, Draft Revenue and Rating Plan 2025 to 29. The officer recommendation is that Council adopts in principle the Draft Revenue and Rating Plan 2025 to 2029, which is attached to this report, and commence community engagement. And 2, supports further review of the differential rating structure to inform the development of the 2026-27 annual budget. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Potter.
I'm happy to move the officer's motion as noted.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Potter. Do I have a seconder? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nicol, you happy to second the officer's recommendation?
No.
No, well, sorry, Councillor Potter was the first hand that I saw, so we're going with that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Roberts? Okay, Councillor Potter to speak first.
This motion and report recommends Council adopt in principle the draft revenue and rating plan for the purposes of community engagement. It is a plan required to be adopted by the 30th of June to comply with the Local Government Act 2020. This plan sets guidelines for use in developing Council's budget, financial plan, and other strategic planning documents. Also, the report states that further consideration of differential rate property classes will be considered by Council later in 25. So there will be time for further consideration on this matter once the community consultation has been done and there has been time to investigate potential other ideas and develop and understand a rationale behind any potential proposed changes. So it's all been well thought out before it's presented again to Council. I like that our Council officers have researched a rationale behind the current suggested figures detailed in the report. Having sound and detailed rationale behind these things is important for our legal compliance to governance. Also, I believe in transparency and equity as well as inclusivity, and I love that we will be consulting the community on this. I want everyone to be heard from an intersectional perspective. I appreciate equity and fairness in outcome. It's a fact and true that everyone is doing it tough in today's economic climate. I genuinely have compassion for everyone in this regards, and any changes to anyone's rates is something that can't be taken lightly and must be thought out in detail. I think before we make any increases anywhere or not, we need to do thorough research, have a sound, thought out and proven rationale, and consult with the community. I like how the officer's recommendation supports a detailed community engagement about this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Liz Roberts.
Through you, Mayor, I gave this item considerable thought, and we had many of us had discussions around at the time that the information was presented to us around the differential property classes. And my view is that these classes are now somewhat outdated for our circumstances, and that we need to do consultation to get these right. In the case that, you know, in some cases we have urban land which is considered urban farmland, but it's not being very proactively farmed, and in effect is being land banked for development. We have a situation where we do, and I acknowledge that we do have farmers that are really struggling, but we also have people like in the urban area who are struggling too. And I thought through if much of this has changed at this time, you know, can someone afford, you know, losing a cup of coffee or a meal here so that someone can have a break of $30 or $50 or $500 in another part of the community. And I just think this item fixes up the one that is really out of whack, the urban vacant land, brings that down into alignment with that brings it under the to the 2,000% and evens it out just that little bit without there being a significant impost on the other classes. And it does then mean that we can go to a longer review than just making a change, proposing anything else at this point when we'll only have a short review period because we've got to get it through, this plan through with the budget. We're required to get this through with the budget. So the consultation period, it's not as long as if we start to look at this after we've passed the budget in the latter half of this year. So I think the officers have written a good report that gives good justification as to what we need for to match with the budget, which we're going to discuss shortly. And again, there is the consultation period, the short consultation period with the budget, in which we can get feedback on the levels of the classes that we're that exist currently. Yeah. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any other councillors? I see Councillor Payton.
I foreshadow that if this motion is lost, that I would put an alternate amendment to the motion. Thank you. I do believe that perhaps Councillor Nicol was disadvantaged by being online, that he didn't get to, there's always a delay in his video recording of his hand up, so unfortunate. So I'll take over on his behalf. In my alternate amendment, I ask that Council adopts in principle the draft revenue rating plan 2025 to 2029, which is attached to this report, and commence community engagement with updated differential ratings as follows. A, that the base rate is 100%. B, urban residential rate of 108% is increased from 107%. That's just 1% difference. C, that farm rate of 60% is reduced from 75%. And our understanding of figures, D is urban farm rate of 100% is increased from 85%. E, urban vacant land rate of 200%. F, urban commercial and industrial rate of 145%. And number 2, supports further review of the differential rating structure to inform the development of the 26-27 annual budget. Mayor, can I just flag that it might take me more than 3 minutes to say this, and is it possible for me to have a little extra time because I've had to read that extra motion?
Yeah, I'll call you at 3 minutes and you can ask for an extension.
Appreciate that, thank you. So, this alternate motion that I've presented, I believe, is a fairer, more equitable system for council to raise income. Our Greenwich land mass makes up 90% of the Shire, yet somehow it's our farmers and rural landholders who are expected to foot the bill for infrastructure that overwhelmingly benefits 10% of landholders living in the urban growth corridor. They're 2% of ratepayers and 4% of rates income. That's not fair, and it's certainly not equitable. If it were equitable, it would be 1-to-1 ratio. Farmland isn't a bank account, it's a livelihood. For many farmers, this land has been in their family for generations. It's not about selling out or cashing in, it's about legacy, hard work and feeding our communities. Most of them have never seen the so-called value of their land that is rated, because that value is theoretical. It's based on speculative development, not real-world income. Yet their rates are calculated as if they're sitting on untapped gold mines, punishing them for simply holding on to what's theirs. When you increase the rates farmers have to pay, you're not just hurting individual landholders, you're increasing the cost of food production. And when food production costs rise, so does the cost of living for everyone. All of those residents in our urban growth corridor will be disadvantaged. It adds pressure to already strained households, contributes to mental health issues, stress, even suicide and domestic violence. And these are the real human consequences of policy decisions made on paper and our vote tonight. On top of that, these inflated costs strip farmers of the ability to reinvest in their own land, money that could be going toward innovation, sustainability and technological advancement, things that would...
That's 3 minutes. Would you like an extension of 1 minute?
I would, thank you.
Seconder for that. We note that. 1 minute, thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. On top of that, these inflated costs strip farmers of the ability to reinvest in their own land, money that could be going toward innovation, sustainability and technological advancement, things that would not benefit just agriculture but society as a whole, is instead going straight into rate payments to feed the growing bureaucracy of government and to pay for services that our rural sector don't use and don't need. Cardinia's rating system needs to be fair. It needs to respect the people who have sustained this land long before development was ever considered. Equity means recognising the difference between land speculation and land stewardship. If growth is being driven by developers and government planning, then they should be paying for it, not the people who are just trying to keep producing food, supporting families and holding their communities together. Community consultation will allow us to test the appetite for this level of change so that following feedback, council officers can prepare fuller reports to inform councillors of the impact prior to the final rates and revenue policy being updated. This motion is a shift in the right direction to achieve rates equity and will allow important discussions to be had with our ratepayers ahead of a more robust policy review later down the track.
Sorry, Councillor Payton, that's
Thank you.
1:20.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Ross. Then
Thank you,
Councillor
Mayor.
Nicol. Yeah.
Just speaking to the alternate notice of motion if this gets defeated. Cardinia Shire Council for so long has supported the food bowl. We've supported our agricultural area and up in the hills. We do it the best that we can, but after a meeting with some of my fellow councillors with the VFF at a local meeting, they shared just how harsh things are for them. With this alternate motion, if the substantive one gets defeated, it means it will cost a little bit from everybody else, but it will have a significant impact for a few people out there who are farmers. I believe most Australians in Cardinia Shire Council residents support local growing of food, bringing up cattle, the whole lot of it in a local area. And if people don't realise, McKinnon going back 80 years ago was market gardens. Glen Waverley was market gardens. And you've got areas like Cardinia Shire Council under pressure now with farmers trying to hang on. This is a very small way that everybody can help give towards farmers to help them and support them in their time of need. It will increase in the urban residential rate from 107% to 108%. Some other areas will increase as well significantly, particularly some of the farm rate areas, which will go from 85%, urban farm rate areas from 85 to 100%. So it will have very small impact on most of residents, but it will have a huge impact for those farming people out there. Anyway, I just think it's people do support local agriculture and the raising of local produce. And I'd like to think that we can support it locally by not just word, but in action as well. I look forward to hearing back if this gets up. This is a draft going out to the community, and we look forward to hearing back from the community about their view on this and what their thoughts are. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and I would speak against the motion as put and foreshadow the same alternate motion as Councillor Payton as well, should the current officer's motion be lost. I actually support the officer's recommendation in principle. And in fact, the one change that we have made that the officers have recommended to us is made based on an anomaly from a particular type of rate class, which meant that action was warranted. And I support that in principle. What I object to is that I flagged a couple of weeks ago when this was first put to us as a council on briefing, other anomalies that were present in the data as presented. And I'll run through those anomalies right now. So 2% of ratepayers who are on farm rate, 2% of all rateable properties pay 4%. They raise 4% of revenue. So a ratio of 2 to 1, right? Now, that small percentage of the population are raising a disproportionate amount of rates compared to other classes of rateable properties. And that is an anomaly, just the same as the anomaly that the officer's report points out with the vacant urban land. And I wanted decent discussion of that when I raised it in the briefing, and I didn't get it. So that is why I was looking to put forward an alternate motion on this matter tonight. And if this officer's recommendation is lost, that alternate motion will be put forward and we can discuss it properly, because I believe that that anomaly requires urgent intervention by council. We have lost an entire farming sector, an entire industry up in Gembrook in the potato industry in the last 20 years. We have failed to see the levels of investment in agriculture and rural business that we have seen in other adjacent shires during the last 20 years of urban growth. And yet we've been promised all the way through since the 1990s that, the growth will be good for the Shire. We'll actually sort of see benefits all around. Whereas what we see is the reverse. We actually see the farming community shouldering a revenue-raising burden at a ratio of 2 to 1 compared to other areas. When we look at the urban areas, the urban residential population or properties is 57% of the Shire's total, but they only raise 45% of the rate's revenue.
Councillor
So
Nicol.
it's an inequitable ratio. It's an inequitable ratio compared to the
Councillor Nicol,
farm rate.
just pull you up there, just to let you know you're at 3 minutes. Would you like another minute extension?
Yes, please. Yes.
Seconded by Councillor Ross. No worries. Thank you, Councillor Nicol.
So I'm flagging in my opposition to the officer's recommendation that there is another glaring anomaly that I flagged 3 weeks ago and that we didn't effectively follow up in subsequent briefings. And so I want us as a council tonight to vote for our rural communities and allow the alternative motion to be put and debated following the failure of this officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. I'll just jump in here. I'm going to support the officer recommendation, and I think we've already sort of seemed to be having the debate about the next motion. I support the policy as the officers have recommended, including the reduction to the vacant urban land rate. The proposed change recommended in the report that we are debating seeks to rebalance the differential rating system for 25-26 to be more consistent with the proportions adopted by council around 10 years ago, seeking to reduce the urban vacant land category as their rate increases have been more than 10% higher as a proportion than most other categories during this time. Around 75% of the 2024 properties in the urban vacant land category are from owners that have had the property for less than 2 years, indicating that home builders and families are the main group being impacted in that category at a time when they're looking to build a home. And for many, they may be receiving less services as they may not be living at the address, or they're clearly not living at the address, depending on if they already live locally or not. In terms of the broader argument and discussion that we're having, there's no doubt I think our current rate differentials need to change. They need to be simplified so they can be better understood, and they need to be more equal. And I'm pleased that the officer recommendation does understand that and commits to going to that engagement later on in the year. And that includes, I think, where we should be trying to increase the burden on land bankers. I don't think this should be a debate between farmers and urban residential areas, which is just Pakenham, Officer and Beaconsfield. They are the only 3 towns that are in the urban residential rate. I think we know where we need to target, and I think that's where we need to target. We need to help farmers, no doubt, particularly those with smaller land holdings, but we shouldn't do that just by passing on the burden. We also need to remember that farms are a business, and a big rates bill is tied to a high property value, as you mentioned. So I recognise that their rates are high, but it's a business expense. It can also be a tax write-off. So that's not true for all farmers, but it's true for some. And of course, we do already subsidise the farm rate. If the principle of wealth was applied, all properties would pay 100% of the base rate. What we have right now is the farm rate is 75% of the base rate. So there is already a small reduction, 25% reduction to the rates that farmers would otherwise pay. So I appreciate the principle that Councillor Nicol and Councillor Payton are trying to push here, and Councillor Ross. And I think it's clear that our farms have been disproportionately impacted by rising land values, and that's really the catch-all here. It's not necessarily the rates. The rates have increased at the same rates as everyone else, but the land values have increased because of the speculation, as you identified, Councillor Nicol. So that's certainly a problem, and I want this council to look at it, but I want it to look at it more in depth than just a debate on the night right now. We go to the community and we don't have enough time. I'd like the officers to present a full report on it. And I think if you identified it's been a problem for 20 years, if that's the case, then I think one more year with a proper in-depth look and proper solutions presented. Because again, when we got the figures presented back to us that this would be about a $750 reduction in a farmer's rates by reducing, I don't think that's the answer. That's a temporary solution. If we're going to look long term, let's look at it properly. So I'm going to support the officer's recommendation here. I appreciate the intent and what you're trying to achieve with the alternate. I won't be supporting it now, but I'd like to see that looked into more detail next year. All right, thank you, councillors. Are there any other speakers? I see Councillor Thompson to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all other councillors for their input so far. This one really is a doozy. I think the officer's report and recommendation, I think the intent of what they're putting forward is the key aspect of what we have to, well, I suppose my rationale behind it. So to reduce that down, that anomaly that a few people have touched on, I am very sympathetic to both sides of the argument. And as Mayor, you were just touching on there, I do believe that there is a middle ground that exists. There is an answer within these numbers somewhere. I'm not convinced that an urban farm rate from 85 to 100% and affecting 41 properties and the bottom dollar figure that comes out to is the answer. We could be targeting the right people in terms of people who are land banking or just in it for the money kind of thing, but I feel like the public outcry for that isn't the answer that we're looking for. I'll go back to the original intent of the officers, and it's making sure that there's a full report here that keeps the rationale robust and fully transparent. Councillor Nicol, I'm sorry that if you feel let down that there hasn't been more discussion around this, but there is a full review of our rates and revenue strategy coming up. So even if this is 12 months worth of extra pain or what that might look like under these proposed differential rates, I do believe that we do have 12 months to rectify this and come up with that middle ground, that answer that does exist somewhere. And I really hope that we don't lose any more farming or agricultural business because of 12 months worth of rates that they feel are too high. Like I said, there is a middle ground somewhere. That's all I'll say for now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I think everyone's had a chance to contribute to this item. So I'll go back to our original mover, which was Councillor Potter, to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor. I have thought a lot about this and it is tough. I also appreciate the intent of the alternate, but I appreciate equity and fairness in outcome. It's true, everyone is doing it tough in today's economic climate, and we might very well make the changes Councillor Nicol has suggested. It's valid, but I think it needs more time before we make those changes, potentially. I'm happy to discuss it properly, and that's exactly what I want too. Because urban dwellers, families, which includes single mums, also do it tough. And I need to speak up for them too. Yes, urban farms and farmers have it hard too. I believe that any increases to anyone's rates is something that can't be taken lightly. The thoughts shared by Councillor Payton are valid and interesting and need to be investigated further. I will add that urban families are also struggling to pay their mortgages and rates and feed their families. It needs to be an equitable process. Councillor Ross shared that we have supported our food bowl in Cardinia, and I too support local growing and farmers. I just want to ensure it's thought out and equitable for everyone in Cardinia, and that the rationale behind making these changes is really well thought out. I don't think we need to rush this. I want to get it right. I think before we make any increases or decreases and changes anywhere, we need to consult with the community and really think about this in a well thought out manner over time and then recheck it again. I want to hear from the community before we change anything. I don't take this flippantly. I like how the officer's current recommendation supports a detailed community engagement about this topic. For me, my core values is inclusivity, and I'm all for transparency. In the report, it clearly states that any further proposed changes would include extensive community consultation with the results presented to Council in the second half of 25. We do then have another opportunity to make changes once the rationale behind the idea has been discussed and thought out clearly from all perspectives. I don't want to rush this. And I agree with Mayor, currently the motion we're looking at is decreasing the inequitable shared homemakers and families who currently hold the biggest part of the pie. So I'm happy to follow the officer's recommendation at this time, but there's much more discussions and thoughts to be had. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. So we'll put the officer recommendation to item 7.4.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Item 7.4.2, 2025-26 draft budget for adoption in principle. The officer recommendation is that Council 1 endorse the draft 25-26 budget, including the draft 25-26 Capital Works Program, to be prepared in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020, be approved in principle for the purpose of giving public notice and providing a period of public exhibition of the draft budget. 2, authorise the CEO to A, give public notice in accordance with Council's community engagement policy of Council's intention to adopt the 25-26 budget, including the 25-26 Capital Works Program, at the Council meeting to be held on 16 June 2025, and B, undertake any and all administrative procedures necessary to enable Council to carry out its functions in accordance with its community engagement policy. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the officer's recommendation. Look, this draft budget.
Sorry, I just need to get a seconder.
Sorry.
That's all right. Do I have a seconder for this item? Seconder for the draft budget, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Ross, over to you.
Sorry about that. Jumped the gun. Thank you, Mayor. The draft budget 2026 comes at a time when we have a constrained income source with rate capping. And for those who know me, they know I've been the biggest supporter of rate capping for the last 17 years. Unfortunately, the model that we have in Victoria is a different one to New South Wales, where they have rate pegging. Rate pegging is determined by the minister, who comes up with a CPI based on a local government CPI. So if your road base goes up 10%, that takes into account. Unfortunately, in Victoria, we take it off a normal CPI where it takes in bananas, TV sets, all this sort of stuff, which isn't really appropriate for councils. But nevertheless, that's what we live in, that environment. 2 years ago, the CPI went up 0.5% more than what the rate cap was allowed to go up. That left councils with an enduring deficit in future. I do support the rate cap, but we need to get more assistance. This budget's extremely responsible, where we've done absolutely the best we can. There's 120 services that council provides to the community. We've done our absolute best to try and make sure that we've got some new council community facilities. We've continued our maintenance to a level that we won't get too far. We won't get behind. Upgrading existing facilities and infrastructure, including parks, sporting grounds, pavilions, paths, footpaths, roads and bridges. It's one of those things where council in the end is going to have to ask the question, what are we legislatively there to do, and what other things do we do that aren't legislated? Because the time is coming when we won't be able to do everything. But still, this budget is one that's been talked over more than any other budget that I've had on council. The councillors have been involved. The staff have been extremely open in their approach to it and the savings that they've made left, right and centre. I look forward to seeing this budget go out. It has got a whole lot of highlights in it. It is constrained, and I look forward to seeing what the community have got to say in response to the draft budget. It is a draft. It goes to the community for consultation, and I'd like to see as many people as I can come back and let us know what you think. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ross, for your comments so far. I'd just like to thank Wayne Allison and her team. I know it's effectively their job to be doing this and to be putting these kind of documents together and whatnot. But I have been impressed, and I'm glad, Councillor Ross, you mentioned that it's the one that's been most talked over in your time on council, because I've been most impressed with how thorough and how robust and how comprehensive the process has been coming up with this draft. There's been a line-by-line review itemised of every capital and every operational project that this council plans to undertake. And as Councillor Ross was saying, it's going through and seeing what we legislatively have to provide and have to give as a service. But then also, okay, it's getting to a pinch point of what needs to go. So there has been lots and lots and lots of behind the scenes work on this. And as much as it's not exciting in terms of we're going to splash this amount of cash here and this amount of cash here because we're just swimming in cash and we can't deliver every single project under the sun that the community wants to see, it is exciting to see that the projected budget and whatnot does see us in a relatively okay position, as much as we are treading water for the moment. In the next 6 to 12 months, that moving forward, that this Shire will be in a strong financial position to deliver services and projects for its ratepayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Roberts.
Through you, Mayor. This budget, I feel, is good. It is taking into account the difficult situation and the pressure that we are under, given the growth we're experiencing. It doesn't introduce any really large projects that we don't already have in motion into our capital works program. It continues with commencing the design of the roads associated with the Pakenham Revitalisation Project, which is already on the books. It continues our commitment to open space and parks with some upgrades, including to the play equipment in Ron Andrews Park. The officers do a review of all the parks and shift around which ones need to be done depending on their condition. I'm grateful that one appears to be finally on the books to be renewed. There's a couple of BMX tracks and basketball, community basketball courts as well that have been included. Just continuing that renewal. We do have to be mindful that it may reach a point that we will have to, as Councillor Ross alluded, that we may have to look at applying for a rate cap variation in the next few years. That's the advice that we're receiving from Alison and her team. So I think this is sensible, and I've really appreciated the way that the councillors have contributed to this process, and really being mindful of the advice that we've been given by the officers. So I look forward to hearing the feedback from the community when it's put out for consultation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been a lot of work put into this budget, and I want to acknowledge our financial team and the development and infrastructure officers in particular who've worked hard to formulate the budget and capital works plan. I can't, however, support this budget for adoption in principle, and I hope that when it goes out for community consultation, that it will actually bring in results and feedback wider than what's sitting in this room tonight. Despite all of the effort, the budget still pays lip service to the rising cost of living and the growing cost of government. We're seeing more landowners unable to pay their rates, and yet this council is still proposing a 3% increase. That's out of step with the pressure that families and small businesses are under. It's also unsustainable to keep asking our current ratepayers to fund the infrastructure needed for future growth. That shortfall should be covered by state government and developer contributions, not residents already doing it tough. Agencies like Vargo need to help Cardinia to place more of that responsibility back where it belongs with the state government. And I would hope that our advocacy team does some more work in this space. Council often responds to calls for savings by asking, which services do you want us to cut? But the real issue is inefficiency. Capital works blowouts, poor planning and weak checks and balances are driving up costs. This isn't just about what we spend, but how we manage our spending. This budget still doesn't tackle the growing costs of council's administrative load. Council needs to operate more like a business, needs to streamline processes, improving productivity and reducing overheads. The red tape and duplication are draining resources. We need to stop outsourcing everything to consultants and instead use local knowledge, reduce litigation risk with better planning, and deliver outcomes, not just reports. We're also spending $6.4 million on compliance and emergency management, including animal control and disaster response. Some of this is essential, but much of it overlaps with responsibilities of state government or could be better delivered by local community groups. It's time to reassess what council's role really is. I don't support duplicating what other levels of government already fund, and council should not be in the business of wealth redistribution or social engineering. That's outside the remit of the Council Government Act 2020. I strongly support redirecting rates toward core services, roads, drains, waste and our natural environment. To make progress for Cardinia, this budget should be funding the non-negotiables like roads, drains and waste so we can consider the nice-to-haves in future budgets. Taking money away from small businesses, churning it through government admin and then handing some of it back as grants. What are we doing? It's madness. Just charge them less to begin with.
Councillor Payton, that's 3 minutes.
May I have just half a minute more?
Yep.
Thank you. Same goes for community buildings. Many were built by volunteers who give their time and community funds to maintain them. Yet these groups are paying to use them. That's not fair. And finally, let's balance our spending. The current spend on high-end sports facilities is excessive, especially when our roads remain unsafe. Arts and culture deserves a more equitable share of the spending. This budget isn't there yet and I can't support it. I look forward to hearing from the community, getting involved, have your say, and hold this council, this budget and us to account. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd ask councillors to just be more mindful of the speaking time. I mean, I appreciate that we can grant extensions, but I'm just going to probably start, particularly given how extensive business is tonight, I'm just going to give you 3 minutes and that's it. Okay, so just be mindful of that when you've got your speaking notes. Just be mindful of that when you're contributing. I want everyone to have an equal say, but I think, we're going over time a lot with our speaking time, so please be mindful of that. All right. Any other speakers to this item, to the draft budget? Councillor Nicol, I see your hand.
Thanks, Mayor. I would support the officer's recommendation, and again, I would also like to congratulate them on the extensive amount of work and briefings that have been delivered to the council, and the detail involved in the work. I want to point out one item from this budget for everyone in Cardinia to lean in and take a good hard look at, and that is the underlying operating deficit. So just above that, there's a line item which is the comprehensive operating surplus of 103.8 million. But the actual, if you take out capital works, the big ribbon cutting things, the things where we get the grants for the big shiny things, roads and new buildings and new pavilions and stuff like that, and you actually look at the operating budget, what's required to conduct the business of council over and over and over again, we're more than $3 million in the red. In fact, this year we have an anomaly forecast of being $7 million in deficit in our operating budget. And we're going to have to take active measures for the next 4 years to reduce that. And that is only done by cutting and refining and finding operating efficiencies in the way we operate as a council. And that is because the population growth that's occurring in the Shire is not adequately funded. And the growth eats itself. Once the people arrive, they need more services. Once the new businesses arrive, they need more services. And so this whole furphy that the growth will make things better, it's the reverse. It costs us money. It's been costing us money for 20 years. It's why we don't have green wedge management plans for 2 of our 3 green wedges. It's why our farmers have to raise twice the proportion of rates than their actual population on behalf of the other rate payers of the Shire. We have to get better at managing this growth and making sure that we don't have all these budget time bombs left for us by the developers once all the new estates are handed over to us. And so I just flag that we caution ourselves as a councillor group that it's not all going to be a bed of roses, and that underlying result is the true bottom line that our organisation is going to have to grapple with over the next few years.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Are there any other speakers to this item? No, that's okay. I'll jump in. I support the draft budget clearly, and I encourage everyone to have a look at the introduction that me and the CEO have provided there at the front of the document, and also read the executive summary. If budgets aren't your thing, you can still read those and provide us some feedback. I take your point, Councillor Nicol. So for those who don't know, I've just got off the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, but served on it for the entirety of my first term on council. And the adjusted underlying deficit is something that comes up all the time, and it is a big issue. And Councillor Nicol is right to caution us about it. I think we need to temper it, though, because we need to balance that by saying all growth area councils experience this. A lot of growth area councils experience this. So it's not that we're on our own. The other thing I would say is we're projecting a $3.2 million deficit this year. So from 7.6, $7.6 million backwards to 3.2 is a big turnaround, and we're projecting a path out. So I think it's important that we stick to that, but it's important that we set that message to our community. Councillor Nichols' right, but we do have a path out of that. And I also want to just, I guess, compare us, which I don't like to do, just very, very briefly, to Casey, who's 30 years ahead of us on their journey, probably in terms of population growth. Now, they have less than half the geographical region of us and more than double the population. Okay, so even though we're neighbouring councils, we're in a very, very different position financially. And so I would just say to our residents that a lot of the projects that we are able to fund in the hills and the outlying regions of this Shire are because of the growth that happens in the middle. Now, it's not a perfect equation. It's not a perfect equation. Councillor Ross always references the growing suburbs funding money that we've been able to get to fund these outer projects. Councillor Nichols' right. In the short term, it does cost us more than we get back. But in the long term, there's a path forward for Cardinia Shire. So we want your feedback on this draft budget. There's a lot of good perspectives in this room, a lot of smart people in this room, a lot of great community representation, but it'd be great to hear from the community directly. All right, thank you, everyone. I'll go back to Councillor Ross to sum us up. Thank you.
I'll make this as quick as I can, Mayor. I'd like to thank the staff for working with all the councillors, 5 new councillors who have really embraced the challenge and come on board really, really fast. One councillor who was here 20 years ago who's taken the challenge on too and embraced it really well. I'd like to thank the staff for that educational lesson and giving us the time and patience to walk us through that journey. Also too, I must say, during this council term, council is going to invest $251.7 million in capital infrastructure, 71.6 allocated for capital works program. Some of these initiatives are $8.9 million to building and maintenance improvements, $42 million approximately for roads and drainage, $1 million for bridges, $1.3 million for footpaths and cycleways, $2.7 for recreation reserve, leisure and community facilities, 1.45 for parks and open space. In addition to this, we've got 120 services, some of which will invest 6.1 million in early years development and early childhood centres, $2.2 million in community safety and inclusion in ageing and wellbeing, inclusion and safety initiatives, $706,000 in youth services, $2.5 million in libraries and $6.4 million in compliance and emergency services management. Just touching on what the Mayor said before, and I had this written down, when rate capping started, and I'm a big advocate for that, it has been suggested and the officers keep telling us we might need a variation. I'd like to think that the Growing Suburbs Fund can come back. When it first started rate capping, it was $100 million a year over 7 councils. It went to $50 million a year. It went to $25 million a year. And now it's $5 million a year for 7 councils. We used to get between $6 and $8 million every single year, which is greater than the $5 million fund at the moment. That needs to come back. And also too, a challenge out there with our budget. The federal government determines the immigration rates in this country. We finish up with 5 to 6 families a day coming into Cardinia Shire, and the state government just has people who come here. We need more support. Council rates, providing all that I've just said, cannot weigh the cost of all the people coming here without support. We need that support, that added support from all levels of other government. We take the very smallest amount of tax off people. So there's the challenge. I think this is a responsible budget, but in future it will have to have cuts if we don't get more support. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. So we'll now put the officer recommendation to 7.4.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Councillor Nichols, sorry, just to confirm you voted in favour for that?
Yes, I was for. Yep.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to time the delay, but I miss it sometimes. I appreciate that. Okay. Agenda item 7.4.3, transformation of core business systems. The officer recommendation is that Council 1 notes the description of current business systems and the impact of functional gaps identified by the Enterprise Software Review. 2, notes the anticipated benefits and risks associated with a coordinated multi-year improvement project to implement business systems. 3, notes that the draft 25-26 budget includes provision for enterprise system projects and is subject to community consultation and further council deliberation. And 4, supports the initial steps to prepare public tender documents, including the appointment of probity advisors, confirming scoping and specification development, noting that any resultant request for tender would not be released for public tender until such time as the 25-26 budget is adopted with provision for such a project. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Thompson.
I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Potter. All right. I'll go to Councillor Thompson to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. During 2024, officers commenced a review of Council's core enterprise business systems, and the analysis identified that Council's current system and software suite is not fit for purpose. It illustrated a range of functional gaps across all major components, including a high number of extreme, severe, and high impact gaps that impact productivity, require manual interventions, inefficient workflows, and costly workarounds, and present a risk to council operations. My brief time here on council so far, I've been wowed by, as I've mentioned already, how much council does and how big within the four walls actually is with staff and officers, and how deep down the rabbit hole that all goes, and the amount of work that actually goes on with, I believe it's over 700 staff. So to have these systems and software systems in place and functional and efficient is super, super important. So just an example of some of the local government functions that require this kind of business software is customer management, website and digital platforms, property and rating, events and facilities, enterprise asset management, financial management, supply chain management, project and contract management, corporate planning, report and governance, people and culture, payroll, regulatory and compliance, platform and technology, and records management. And there's information on what each of those actually mean and incorporate. So the review was undertaken because customers have regularly provided feedback that they're frustrated with aspects of council service, which are at least in part attributable to software limitations and disjointed business systems. There's several core business systems were due for review. Multiple internal audits have identified issues that require action. Multiple business units have required staff increases in recent years, in part to address processing administrative strain, and key learnings from several software projects in recent years that have demonstrated limitations. And a lot of that does come down to outdated and old systems, because Cardinia is no longer the little old country shire that it once was 20 years ago. It is, as we've debated a few times tonight, we do have those three main zones of, you have your ranges up to the north, you're very much your more country agricultural east and southern regions, and then that central western kind of urban zone. And we're so much more than rates, roads and rubbish because of those three different zones. But to make sure that we have functional software systems, and one thing that is very, very clear, and this is not slagging on current officers or anything like that, but one thing that always comes back to me is the customer service levels at council are inadequate, to be putting it nicely. And I think the number one in the report, the number one thing that is a functional gap is inconsistent customer experience. There's also operational inefficiencies, elevated cost base for services, data integrity challenges, cybersecurity risks, inflexibility to adapt scale, and end-of-life systems. We're just getting too big for what we currently have here. So yes, it is quite a big financial commitment that we are making, but the need for this has been identified, and the financial team have put this into the budget over the next 4 years. So I'll open up the floor to other councillors to have their say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll go to your seconder, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mayor. Today we are just essentially acknowledging the report and giving the go-ahead to start to prepare the public tender documents. Our staff need systems and software that is functional and up to date. It's huge. Cardinia is growing. Our population is exploding, and we are definitely more than rates, roads, and rubbish. I think it's just one of those things that we have to do. Upgrades are a practical part of life, like upgrading from an old phone to a smartphone, or going from records to tapes to CDs to streaming and beyond. We just have to do it. This report gives a thorough outline of the types of services we require this update to be able to successfully deliver. And the budget for this is expected to be 32 million, but spread over from 25 to 2030 to maximise ratepayer benefit and operational efficiency, and to ensure corporate compliance and risk management. I support the officer's motion as noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillor Roberts.
Through you, Mayor, just a few brief comments. I do note that for this particular tender, we will be, Council will be appointing a probity officer to assist. So there's some external oversight, which is pretty important given the amount of money that's being spent. I think that's really important to note. As a former local government officer, there's nothing more frustrating than the system's not serving you to be able to be a good employee, and then that impacts on the people that will want to work here as well if the systems aren't working for them. So it's really important that we make this investment, and the return will come in improved customer experiences, as Councillor Thompson noted. I had a case just recently that came to the Mayor and my attention regarding a person who had an issue with a tree and needing their tree lopped, and out the front of their property, it goes into the system through a request, but then the customer service team, they can't see where that is in the train with the works team. So where the systems don't connect, and there's not, and the teams within council can't work together because the systems don't work for them, it directly impacts on the customer experience. And then in that case, they come to us going, what's going on? And then we send it through another system to try and get them, to get them more support that wouldn't be needed if the software was right and systems are right in the first place. It's just a small example. There's probably numerous of them, and you can see from the report by the analysis done by the consultants that there are many of these examples. So I strongly support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Payton.
Thank you, Mayor. Would be remiss of me not to follow up my previous comments about needing to be more productive and efficient in this council if I didn't support this this recommendation from officers, so I will support it. It's a mammoth task to undertake an enterprise-wide upgrade and transformation of business systems. Having worked in IT in my previous life, have watched that process go through. What encourages me is that we've got our Audit and Risk Committee who are very closely watching and monitoring the process, and our independent members on that committee also sit on the Audit and Risk Committees of several other councils, and they inform us that there are many local councils who have had to go through this. There have been various experiences, and looking at the processes and the planning that has been put into this initiative to date, they applaud the work that's been done by our consultants and by our officers to inform that. So I'm pleased to think that we will bring ourselves into this century and even beyond. And I think there's lots of testing and planning to be done to ensure that this becomes a robust system that will hold and keep our data safe and get our departments talking together as they should be. So I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payton. Are there any other councillors who'd like to contribute to this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Just putting this in perspective, this is a huge investment for council and it's not taken lightly. We've had consultants come in here to talk about the system that we run at the moment, how we've absolutely run over the lemon that many times you cannot get any more out of it. And to put it in layman's terms, it's like my 87-year-old father telling me he loves Windows XP, but every time it upgrades, it all shuts down. And it's got a bit like that here at council. We've done absolutely everything we can with the system that we've got. Unfortunately, we can't run the most up-to-date systems, and that means everything doesn't talk with each other, and all the data we get doesn't talk with each other either. So staff members are spending so much more time having to work on things manually when they should be able to click a few buttons and it should all pop up for them. We need to come out of the dark ages and get the new computer. We need to get systems that work that will take us into the future. And the consultant advised us, if we take this step, it will work a little bit like the ones we've had in the past, where we actually get more out of our system because we've gone to the major upgrades that we need to, not just made a little bit of an upgrade, which upgraded it a little bit, put a little bit more RAM in, a little bit more what's the name in. This is actually a really big upgrade. So we need to do this. Otherwise, we'll be left behind and our staff will be spending more time spinning the wheels up and not getting what they need to get done. You know, this saves man hours and time and in employing more people by investing in this area. So I endorse this. It's a big jump. It's a big investment, but we have to take it. So I hope my fellow councillors will support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to this item? I see none, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Thompson, to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all of my colleagues for speaking to the item. Really briefly, just to sum up, I think everything's been covered really, really well to this item. But I think it's really good hammering home the point that the current operational needs are not being met and cannot be facilitated now or into the future, and that this report is only just to endorse officers to take the next step to support a future public tender, which will allow council to verify the costs and benefits that are identified in the business case attached to the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. So we'll now put the officer's recommendation up for a vote for agenda item 7.4.3. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. All right, councillors, I'm going to adjourn the meeting here for a short break. So we're going to come back at 9:50. That gives us, don't put plastics in your recycling bin. It's not just because of the environment, although that's a good reason in and of itself. It's also because it costs us less. So it's judged as a percentage, and if we go over certain thresholds and certain limits in terms of contaminated recycling, the contract costs us more. Ultimately, then that cost is passed back onto ratepayers through the waste charge the following year. So the more you can do individually to ensure that your recycling bin just has cans and glass and is relatively clean and just has the right things in it, the cheaper it is for all of us. Not many people know that, so I think it's important that we get that message out there. All right, thank you. Is there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Nicol, I see you.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'd just like to flag the tender evaluation panel and the advisors and the methodology that they developed or employed through the tender evaluation process with the weighting of different criteria, etc. In the end, it came down to 2 close tenders and daylight to the third one, and it was a very clear and thorough process to walk through and understand that the integrity behind the process and the ultimately successful tenderer. So, this being your classic core local government business, it's good to see that there actually were more than 1 or 2 tenders put in, and that the market for recycled waste processing and market choice is potentially growing. So that can hopefully mean good things in the future regarding getting better deals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicol. Are there any other speakers? I see none. I'll go back to Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in brief, this contract is worth $8 million, excluding GST, over the 5-year period of the tender. And as well highlighted by Councillor Roberts, the $2 million saving over the life of the contract is due to the fact that we can put some things in place to try and save money. But what people can do in the community has been highlighted by the Mayor. The fact that if it comes in not as clean as what it would, we get penalties. And they are literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of penalties if it isn't clean. If it's clean, we don't get the penalties and we actually save money. So then we can spend on other things, or the rates don't have to go up quite as much. Anyway, that's all. I hope my fellow councillors support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. So we'll put the officer recommendation to 7.4.5 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Item 7.5.1, Council Resolutions Report, January to March 2025. The recommendation is that Council note the report detailing the implementation of Council resolutions for the period of 1 January 2025 to 31 March 2025. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Thompson.
I move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Roberts. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. The report details all the resolutions that have been made from the 1st of January to 31st of March of 2025, including the actions taken to implement the decisions, and it doesn't include matters listed for noting. One thing that I like about when looking through this report is seeing how much is in the completed table. It just shows that we're really proactive within the 4 walls here, and serious about when things are raised and issues are raised. And a lot of the time, and what's really good about this current council group is that, and certainly not suggesting or implying anything otherwise, but what I've been really impressed with this group sitting here for the first time is how community focused and driven we all are, and seem to have a really, really similar goal in, we've all carrying the voice of the community to these tables and to these conversations. So to see so many things being brought up in motion, and seeing this resolution action report, seeing so many things completed is really, really positive in my eyes. And looking at this, a lot of the things that are in progress are either things that are outside of our control, things that do just need to take time, or they've only been raised within literally the last couple of weeks, so they haven't just been quite addressed yet. So I'm not going to go quite into the details. I'll let my other councillors go into anything they want to note of anything particular. The only thing I will mention is probably item 10.3, carryover of the review of council's unsealed roads and drainage maintenance program, and the review being undertaken with improvements and savings identified. That item still remains in progress, and I do look forward to that being brought back to council at some stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Roberts.
Through you, Mayor. This is a useful report that just helps us keep things on track and enables us to follow up with officers if things are not progressing as they should. As it says in the discussion, this report is provided for the information of councillors to ensure transparency regarding the implementation of council decisions and provide confidence to the council that the decisions are implemented without undue delay. So I support this report.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Potter.
I'm just going to be officer-centric for a moment. I just would like to highlight item 10.3, notice of motion 1111 from myself on the 17th of March about the Officer Town Centre and its progress. And it does say in this report that a council report has commenced and it aims to be considered at council meeting on the 21st of July. So we look forward to hearing more from all of the items in due course, of course, but especially that one for me.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a really good addition to our council meeting agenda. We never used to have this. I know Councillor Owen used to often talk about resolutions that were put up years ago that he has no idea what happened to them or whatever happened. This here actually brings it, as was pointed out, in the face of everybody. Every time we have a general council meeting, this will pop up. You get to see what's in it, see what's happening. And as Councillor Thompson said, it's to show what we're doing in this space, how many things are complete and how many things are in progress. So anyway, I think it's a really good addition to our meeting agenda. We used to have a very basic meeting agenda years and years ago, which didn't have a whole lot of depth, but this is actually adding to it. So people who do come along and even councillors can be on top of the things that they put up and find out where it's up to, and it prompts them because they're very busy with so many things going on. It highlights the things they're putting up to see where it's up to. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Yeah, fantastic report, and I think really speaks to the transparency that is important for all level of governments to do, but particularly for us councils who seem to do that better than anyone. I think one of the things I like to do when I reflect back on this report is look at the previous decisions that were made and the previous good decisions that have been made. And one of the ones that I stumbled across here was Councillor Payton's earlier notice of motion about the riding for disabled, and how that was a good decision really on our council term that was made, and it's ultimately led to us giving them the lease now, and that's moved forward and gone through. So I think I encourage everyone to reflect on this report and read through this report in terms of if you want to know what council's been doing. And the most important thing is the action taken tab, so you can see, you know, the decision was issued to the applicant parties in accordance with the resolution. You can see what the officers have done with the instruction that we have given them through our actions in this chamber. So yeah, very, very good report, and long may it continue to remain as part of this council's agenda. Are there any other speakers to this item? There being none, I'll go back to Councillor Thompson to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, fellow councillors. I think everyone summed it up really well, so nothing further to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So we'll put the officer recommendation to 7.5.1 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare that carried. Agenda item 7.5.2, community engagement update. The recommendation is that council notes the community engagement activities being undertaken during April 2025. Do I have a mover? Councillor Roberts.
I move the officer's recommendation as written.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for this item? Councillor Ross. Councillor Roberts to speak first.
This report comes to us every full council meeting and provides us with a detailed breakdown of what consultation is underway. There's quite a bit, and it's targeted at quite different parts of the business. The first one is the upgrade of the Puffing Billy Park in Emerald, and part of that, the consultation, I've noted that they were at the Pave Festival recently to conduct part of that engagement, and it has. So sometimes they're engaging out in the community at festivals and events. Sometimes it's done in more of an online sort of capacity, as is the case with the domestic animal management plan. To the extent that I've actually seen on social media people talking about this and saying, "Oh, I've received an email about this. Is this happening? Is this actually a council survey?" And I can respond to this. So it shows how it can be the consultation can be face to face, or it can be landing in people's inboxes because they've got a cat or dog registered with the Shire. So, and then right down to the local level, the Eagle Drive, Pakenham, there's a traffic area management is being looked at in that area. So the contact there is through letters, just inform, and it's at the inform level. So just letting them know that this work's going to be in place. And of course, there's the big one, community engagement on our council priorities, which is going on right now to feed into the council plan. And there's a myriad, looks like well over 8 to 10 dot points there of ways that we're engaging with the community. So it's really great to have this this detail and for us to know what's going on, so that when we're out in the community and people say, oh, I'm concerned about X, and go, oh, I'm concerned about the dogs in this park, and go, oh, well, the animal management plan document is up. You should go to Creating Cardinia and put your view in, you know. So it's a really useful report. So I recommend it.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in brief, this is a really good addition to our reports on our council agenda, and make it really brief. If you look down the engagement plans, it reads the project description, details of the engagement and the responsible business unit. It's got all the information there in dot form, very easy to read, so you can see what's happening in this area in the Shire. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And just to give a shout out to our community engagement staff, I opened the PAVE Festival and did not expect to see someone from council there, and there Emma was working hard. And, you know, at our local festival, myself and Councillor Roberts were at the Pakenham Hills Neighbours Day, and again, council staff there engaging with the community, taking feedback, suggestions, ideas. So often those things are on weekends, and yes, I know that that's their job, but they do work incredibly hard. So I want to thank them for doing that. It's very important that we do that. Are there any other speakers to this item? Councillor Potter.
Just to remind everybody to please go onto the council website, Creating Cardinia, and have your say.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, we'll go back to you, Councillor Roberts, to sum up.
Again, I encourage people to take these opportunities and give the input, because it improves our Shire for everyone when they take part. Thank you.
All right, we'll put the officer recommendation to 7.5.2 up for a vote. All those in favour? Against? Declare that carried. Moving into councillor reports. So we'll start. Does anyone want to start us off for councillor reports? Councillor Payton, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Highlights of my past month, together with our Mayor, Councillor Kwasik. I enjoyed the open day at Harewood House to raise funds for the Kooyarrup Regional Health Service. We were blessed with good weather, and the day was an important celebration for locals and generously supported by Dr. Pat McWhirter, who opens her beautiful home each year. It was great to see former Mayor Graham Moore and former Councillor Kay Cameron at the event, and really nice to know that you don't stop community service as you leave council, that it's a lifelong pursuit. And I think if you're invested in the community, you'll keep it up whether you're sitting in this room or sitting at home on your couch watching TV. My second item of highlight was meeting with the local branch of the Victorian Farmers Federation out in Narnagoon the night following our previous meeting, actually. So together with me came Deputy Mayor Pomeroy, Councillor Nicol and Councillor Ross. Thank you for their time. We attended the branch meeting, and at that meeting were also former councillors David Young and Graham Osborne. It was a fantastic opportunity to share updates from council and farmers' perspectives on some of the many challenging issues regarding green wedge management, rate structures and state levies, water management, farming futures in Cardinia, and a host of other matters. And I just want to mention, speaking with the president of the West Gippsland Progress Association, Robert Green, told me work that his association are doing. And then last week I noticed that they've just received a $10,000 grant from council. They are actually doing some informing a department of Deakin called Mood and Food. And it's a department that's been founded by Professor Felice Jacker. And basically, she's a nutritional psychiatrist, And I was really proud to hear that our farmers are, not only producing food, but they're providing research that's really information, providing their food into Deakin to progress this, the mental health space and how nutritious food informs that. So wanted to congratulate them for that. Finally, thanks to Mayor Councillor Kowazik again and to Council's Coordinator of Development and Infrastructure, Daniel Morga, who came with me last week to provide a Q&A session to residents of Cardinia Park Lifestyle Village. It was really valuable. We covered off a number of the issues that the local residents there had regarding construction of the roads around the development area. And it was a really valuable forum for us to hear, about 100 voices of feedback. It worked really well, and I'd love to see more meetings like this that allow us to meet with township associations and residents groups to hear concerns and provide updates on council matters. Councillor Potter is now planning to repeat the presentation with residents of the Office of the Lifestyle Village at Ricks Road. So I just remind our residents that as councillors, we're here for you to call on us, happy to go and meet with you out in your place and to update you on council matters and bring your concerns back into council. So thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 4 little community reports I want to share, so I'll try to be brief. You might remember that we attended the Officer Gurdwara with Mayor and Councillor Payton for their Khalsa Sajja Divas celebration, which signifies the foundation day of the Sikh faith in the year 1699. So thank you to the Sikh community at Officer for welcoming us. It was an honour to share a delicious meal, and especially on this special night for you all, where I understand it was entirely led by women who recited from the Holy Scriptures, led prayers and performed beautiful kirtan to emphasise equality. I was also moved when I learned that the night included a special prayer for the victims of Myanmar and Thailand earthquakes. So thanks again for having us. I also attended the rock football at the Rob Porter Officer Rec Reserve with my family and friends, and it's always fun to get involved in all the matches and support our local team or teams. I also stopped by our lovely Officer Community Market too at our Officer Public Hall in Tivendale Road, and it was such a beautiful way to connect with our community, local makers, friendly faces, with a great cup of coffee. We're so lucky to have this gem right here in Officer Ward. It's a great way to support small business and creatives doing what they love. The next market's on the day before Mother's Day on the 10th of May. And the Cardinia Creative Community Open Microphone will be performing live there that day too. And another highlight this month, I can't go past the Have Hope Colour Fun Run. Mayor was there with his kids and me, and we all ran through the colour powder foam and the fire brigade's water hoses with Zumba and a DJ and a great mix of food and coffee and merchandise, raising funds for a local charity, Have Hope. For those who don't know, I'll quickly share about what Have Hope is. They support people doing it tough, those impacted by terminal illness and suicide, offering food relief, care packages and heartfelt support. Its founder, Bobo, is a fellow Cardinia leadership graduate and a truly courageous woman. After the heartbreaking loss of her son to suicide, she created Have Hope to make sure no one else faces that kind of pain alone. And her love and her strength shine through everything this charity does. On the weekend at the Colour Run, it was beautiful weather and it was just such a joyful community day. I'm so grateful to be part of a community that shows up to support one another, and I hope they made lots of money. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. A few things that I would like to just touch base on. it's Peter Benezic's most favourite topic in the world, the lakeside fountain. I have been informed that there is almost daily communication of where's my fountain, where's my fountain, where's my fountain. So it is purely and solely, unfortunately, out of our control. It is on its way. It is coming. It's just one of those things that, especially with the state of overseas politics and economics, that it's purely just out of our control. But it is coming, residents, I promise. Another thing that happened last Thursday, Mayor Kowaczyk and I went down to Arena Cafe for a Meet the Mayor session. And that was actually a very, very pleasant morning, a couple of hours of a nice steady flow of residents coming in, sharing a coffee, sharing a cake, and chatting, sometimes quite casually, but also about things that are dear to hearts or issues, or things that they would like to see change within the Shire, which is what those Meet the Mayor sessions are so great for, is that they are just nice face-to-face. And so many people that, I didn't know there was a face, I've heard about you, I've seen about you, and to get to know residents as well. So really, really successful kind of initiative that Mayor's got going on with the ward councillors. I believe every 2 months we're going around, or you're going around to each of the wards. Yeah. I do want to highlight the upcoming Q&A session, and just keep an eye out for any information that will be coming out about that on the 29th of April. We're just finalising, I think, the final details inside council before that'll be public, and we'll send that out. But that'll be really interesting for the local federate candidates of Latrobe. As mentioned earlier, all candidates have been invited, and that'll be run by a separate, impartial third party. So that'll be a really interesting thing held at the CCC, which, speaking of, it really is dear to my heart, the CCC. I remember I've spent half of my youth literally falling asleep in the seats of that theatre, multiple rehearsals or shows going on that I was just dragged along to at the time. So to see it so, I guess, underutilised at the moment was one of the driving reasons for me to jump onto council. And I'm pleased to say that there is lots of background work going into how we can activate that space more. And so just keep an eye out on some upcoming details about the CCC within the next few months, and then hopefully we can reactivate that space to the full capabilities that can be had. And the last thing I want to touch on is the upcoming Anzac services. Council provides and supports many local organisations, RSLs and Rotary groups and whatnot, to assist in running the said Anzac services. There's a bunch, and I really, really do encourage all residents to get along to an Anzac service. It's certainly not glorifying war or anything like that, but certainly a memorial and remembrance of the sacrifice that people have made and how lucky we are to live, in this Shire and in this country under the conditions we do, especially considering much of the turmoil in the world. So the upcoming Anzac services, they are also dear to my heart, and a time of year that I really, really look forward to, as they are always a special event. So there are multiple dawn services. I know Bunyip and Gembrook are doing 11 o'clock services. Garfield, I believe, is the 11 o'clock, and Officer 11 o'clock as well. Oh, dawn. Yeah, I can't even mention all the dawn services. I think there's probably 10 within the Shire. But I believe most of them are online on the Shire website as well. So keep an eye out for that. And there's also a Bunyip 2 o'clock service. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the opening of the Changing Places facility down on the Barring Bullock Park, down by the new Pakenham train station at the end of Drake Place there. The facility was opened by the Mayor, our Mayor, with State Disability Minister Lizzie Blanthorne and with local Pakenham Member of Parliament, Emma Vullen. This facility is just fantastic. It has accessible toilets within the main changing spaces facility. It has a hoist, an adult change table, shower, handrails, disability-friendly seating nearby, charging points for your mobility scooter. Having been on one recently, they're very handy, those chargers. Accessible barbecues, accessible drinking fountains, and accessible footpaths as well with the dot markings for getting around. Michael Wright attended as a representative of the Access and Inclusion Committee of Council, who gave significant feedback during the development of the facility, along with former Mayor Tammy Bradford. So it was a great little way just to celebrate the effort to get this facility, which is really needed, and it's just in a perfect spot there for people who are travelling down to Gippsland, with it's so close to the station. So that was the project was delivered by the Level Crossing Removal Program through a Changing Places state grant, and also our money, council money, went into elements of it around it as well. So I think it's just fantastic, and hopefully we can have more of these facilities across the Shire over time as well. Saturday night before, not the one just gone, the one before, I attended the gala at the Pakenham Racecourse for the Cardinia Community Foundation and Pakenham Rotary. Both groups were fundraising 50-50 from the gala, with 50% of the money going into the foundation's grants program and 50% going to Rotary for a new project they wish to fulfil on Rotary Park, the Parkrun Park, as people sort of know it these days. They'd like to put some adult exercise equipment in that park, so that's what they're fundraising for. It was a fun night, some great auction items. You could bid on everything from forklifts to the job of editing the Pakenham Gazette, or a ride in former Mayor Blencorn's Rolls Royce. So and I haven't yet heard the total raised, but I'm looking forward to hearing what they managed to raise for those two good causes. Just a reminder that Yakaboo is not far away. Get your wristband now for those rides before they sell out. So that'll be on the Anzac Day long weekend, so the Saturday and the Sunday. So it's a great festival in its 49th year, heading towards 50 years next year. So I was speaking to Rose, the current president, about how they're going, and they're looking at having around 120 market stalls at the market. So it's going to be massive. So great chance to have a good fun day with the rides and mixing in the Pakenham community. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just highlight three things. I attended the Josh Muir art exhibition down at CCC. That was an amazing testament to somebody who's passed away by his family. It was really illuminating, sharing the artwork with the stories behind them. I believe that was really well attended, and it was actually designed for digital art. So therefore it was originally done so it would show up on the wall. And then what they decided to do was actually put it into proper artwork as well. So it was actually digitally modified so that it would be much better displayed on the walls. Also, I attended the Cardinia Arts and Skills Expo down at the CCC. It was interesting to talk to our staff in relation to the people who they actually saw there at the exhibition. And it wasn't so many schools. Like it used to be, they'd bring in buses of schools and people to young people to have a look at all the different jobs. But they actually said that in some ways, those young kids were sort of looking, but it was more of a school tour. They actually said the majority of the people who attended this year were more people who were actually looking for jobs, who were interested in jobs, who were in the job market, but just unfortunately were out of work at the moment. So they actually said that a lot of the exhibitors, they had really good attendance where people actually came genuinely interested, asking for phone numbers and how they might be able to get a job in different areas. So that was really good. It sounds like most of the people who were there were really happy with the response, and they'd come back next year. And the other thing of note that I attended was that citizenship down at the Cardinia Shire offices. At the Triple C. I must say, for anyone who's never attended one, if you want to get excited about life in Cardinia Shire, come and look at our new residents. They're super excited about being here. They really bring such a colour and diversity to our Shire. I can remember going back, say, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, we just didn't have. We had our traditional things that we did, our shows and our different things, but with the diverse community that's come into our Shire. And as I point out to people, I've seen about 1,000 people a year come through our citizenship since I've been on council. So that's almost 17,000 people come through as new residents. Very, very exciting. You hear them make noise. The Mayor says, you know, the people who make the loudest noise about being excited, let us know. And they're all excited. They really are. I know the staff have a really good time. It's really well attended. And, you know, you just put life aside to see people who are given an opportunity and want to live in Cardinia Shire. Really good event to go to. Anyway, that's all I've got to add. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Nicol, would you like to add a report?
Look, people I've been working with know what we've been doing. The VFF meeting was very interesting and certainly led a lot to the proposed alternative motion that we were putting forward tonight. And also, it's been great to see and hear from both the organisers of the PAVE Festival and the Emerald Arts Society and the Cardinia Arts Society around the success of the pop-up art in Emerald Lake Park, which is occurring in the former cafe space. Apparently there were 300 plus people through that pop-up art space just last weekend. And in addition, we're working towards establishing a hills-wide neighbourhood watch, and a meeting was held in Emerald 2 weeks ago, preliminary meeting, and we'll be moving on working with Neighbourhood Watch Victoria to potentially next steps, and looking for people in the community, in the Hills community, who are concerned or want to get involved in building community resilience and safety in the Hills across all hazards, to come along to the next meeting. So please keep an eye out in the local newsletters for when that meeting is going to be, and we'll see you there.
Fantastic. Thank you for the update, councillors. Are there any petitions to be presented? Any petitions to be tabled? I see none. There are no notices of motion, no items of urgent business. We are about to go into councillor questions, but before I do that, I just want to go back to community questions, because we had a community member attend late, and I think we can use some good judgment here and get his question read out in the meeting. So I'll refer those to the General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment, Peter Benezik.
Through you, Mayor, and thanks, Tony O'Hara, for your questions. I'll read out all 5 questions and then provide a response at the conclusion. Question 1, with the EPA rejecting the development licence for the Hampton Park Waste Transfer Station, does SEMWAP have any contingency plan if the plant cannot be placed at the Hallam Road landfill due to the proximity to residential homes and not meeting EPA buffer zones or buffer requirements? Question 2, will Cardinia Shire or the South East Melbourne Advanced Waste Project Group appeal, support Veolia's appeal against the EPA decision? Question 3, has Cardinia Shire Council entered discussions to find a suitable site in Cardinia Shire? If so, what region? And has or could it be considered? Question 4, the EPA General Environment Duty requires businesses to protect the environment and human health. Veolia, proposing the waste transfer station, was found guilty of failing the GED by the Supreme Court. Has Cardinia Shire considered their GED responsibility when choosing to work with this company on the facility near Hampton Park residents? Question 5. Has Cardinia Shire addressed or will address the amenity impact of the proposed waste transfer station being only 250 metres from homes and not meeting the EPA buffer guidelines? The response is Council is dedicated to implementing a long-term waste management solution for the Cardinia community. In partnership with 8 councils, we are working through a special purpose vehicle for the South Eastern Metropolitan Advanced Waste Project. As part of our commitment to good governance, these questions will be forwarded to the special purpose vehicle for consideration and response. Additionally, all member councils will be updated on this inquiry. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Peter. So we'll now go to councillor questions, and I note we have councillor questions submitted. So we'll do this. Councillor Payton, I'll ask you to read your question and then a response from you, if that's okay. Is that the way you want to do it, or would you like Peter to read it out entirely?
I'm happy to save Peter some voice, and I'll read the question if he wants to answer.
No worries. Let's go.
So the first topic, Cardinia Soldiers Memorial Hall that opened in 1928. On behalf of the Cardinia District community, I request information from council officers regarding the Cardinia Soldiers Hall. Number 1, who owns the land that the Cardinia Soldiers Hall is on? Who is responsible for the hall's management and maintenance? Number 2.
Sorry, do you want to respond to questions?
Or would you like to answer an
question? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Payton, it's a council-owned site, so therefore council is responsible.
Thank you. Number 2, will council provide a full set of accounts for the hall over the past 5 years, including equity and liabilities, income and expenses of the property, and any fixtures and fittings, please?
Through you, Mayor. I will need to take that question on notice to enable staff to prepare the information and provide that to you.
Thank you. Can I just confirm that that would be listed in the minutes of this meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 3, will council provide an estimated budget costing for the repairs needed to make the hall usable again, including amounts needed for annual maintenance and insurance?
The estimated project cost is in the order of 2.2 to 2.7 million. And a high-level scope includes demolition of public toilets and the rear kitchen section of the building, reconstruction of the toilets and the kitchen amenities, remediation of the main hall, including restumping.
Thank you. Number 4, what is council's plan for the hall? It has been used for some time. It has been unused for some time and continues to deteriorate whilst not being cleaned regularly and cared for. Most locals now prefer to hire the Cardinia Recreation Reserve facility for events. I ask that council officers brief councillors on a disposal scenario so that a notice of motion at the May 2025 meeting can start the process of community engagement and release the financial burden of this non-returning asset. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Through you, Mayor. There is no current agreed plan for the hall. Council officers can provide information on the options available at the appropriate time.
Thank you. My second topic, Cardinia Civic Band Hall in Pakenham Upper. On behalf of the Cardinia Civic Concert Band, who currently have shared use of the Nanagoon Hall for their rehearsal space since the Pakenham Upper Hall fell into disrepair and became unusable, I ask the following questions. Number 1, what are the costs and time frame required to complete works to repair the Pakenham Upper Hall so that it becomes usable? Is this budgeted?
Thank you for your question. The facility requires significant renewal, and early estimates for renewal was in the magnitude of $1 million. However, there is no current budget allocation.
Thank you. Number 2, is there a plan to find a permanent home for the Cardinia Civic Concert Band so that they don't have to store their instruments in a trailer and so that rehearsal spaces can remain set up from one week to the next? Please give details of the deadline set to achieve this.
Thank you for your question. Council officers were not aware of the band's needs to store the instruments in a trailer at the time of locating the band at the Nanagoon Hall. The band and council officers worked to ensure adequate storage was provided. We will reach out to the band to see how we can support their needs. A future permanent home has not yet been determined.
Thank you. If the Cardinia Civic Concert Band is provided with a new home that is not the Pakenham Upper Hall, what is proposed for the future of the Pakenham Upper Hall? Or when I say Pakenham Upper Hall, I actually mean the Cardinia Civic Band Hall.
Yeah.
Please provide a response to the questions that have been raised for these two halls.
Yep,
Thank you.
Oh,
sorry, I'll read that properly. Please provide a response to the questions that have been raised for the Catani Soldiers Hall, but in the context of the Pakenham Upper Hall.
Yep. Thank you for your question once again. This is yet to be determined. Thank you. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Councillor Payton. All right, that concludes the councillor questions. So we'll go to the mayoral minute, and I'll try and be very brief because I understand it's 20 to 11 at night, and thank you to everyone for sticking around. I did talk about this in the town planning meeting because that was the first chance we had to talk to the public following Carol's news. But given that this is the first ordinary council meeting and more formally where we can engage with our community, I did want to obviously announce our CEO has recently announced her resignation, and I know we've put stuff out in the paper, but I would like this council to pause formally and also thank our CEO for her service over the past 6.5 years. Absolutely. I know that Carol's not going straight away, and we're grateful that she's staying on for the next couple of months to help us early on in the recruitment process. But so we will have more time to say goodbye. But this council, this current group and previous groups of councillors owe a lot to our CEO, and we wish her very well, and she's welcome to change her mind at any time. All right, so I want to talk about the advocacy campaign. So with less than 3 weeks to go until the federal election, our advocacy campaign is in full swing. Hopefully you've seen some of that stuff there. We're halfway through the public campaign that highlights our 4 key advocacy priorities: the Lang Lang Sand Truck Bypass, Cardinia Life redevelopment, Princess Highway intersection upgrades from Narnagoon to Longwarry, and the road sealing package. So please keep an eye out. Please keep sharing that. I think it is having an impact. I think there's been some more announcements today. We know that this is a really tricky space for a non-marginal seat, but we're doing everything we can as a council to make sure the community's priorities are getting the requisite airtime. And there's a few other things I was going to cover off, but again, I think we're leaving it very late, so I'll do that. There's no confidential items for consideration, and so we'll bring the meeting to a close. So I now declare the meeting closed at 10:42 p.m. The next council meeting will be held on the 19th of May 2025 at 7 p.m. Thanks, everyone.